The House will come to order. Today, the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Taylor Hunt from Lutheran High School, Parker, Colorado.
Hi, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Schiebel, please call the roll.
Representatives Bacon, Barone, Representative Barone,
Excused.
Basenecker, Bottoms, Rep. Bottoms,
Excused.
Bradfield, Bradley, Representative Bradley,
Excused.
Brooks, Representative Brooks,
Excused.
Brown, Caldwell, Camacho, Carter, Clifford, Rep. Clifford,
Excused.
DeGraff, Representative DeGraff,
Excused.
Duran, English, Espinoza, Foray,
Here.
Flanell, Froelich, Garcia, Garcia Sander, Gilchrist, Goldstein, Gonzalez, Hamrick, Hartsook, Representative Hartsook,
Excused.
Jackson, Johnson, Representative Johnson,
Excused.
Joseph, Kelty, Representative Kelty,
Excused.
Leader, Lindsay,
Here.
Luck, Representative Luck,
Excused.
Lukens, Mabry, Marshall, Rep. Marshall's excused, Martinez, Morrow, McCormick, Wynn, Pascal, Phillips, Representative Phillips,
Excused.
Richardson, Representative Richardson,
Excused.
Ricks, Representative Ricks,
Excused.
Rutinell,
Here.
Ryden, Sirota, Rep. Sirota,
Excused.
Slaw, Smith, Soper, Representative Soper,
Excused.
Stewart K, Stewart R, Story, Sukla, Representative Sukla,
Excused.
Taggart, Tatone,
Here.
Valdez A, Rep. Valdez,
Excused.
Velasco, Weinberg,
Excused.
Wilford, Winter, Woodrow, Woog, Zokai. She say? Rep. Zokai is here. And Madam Speaker.
Here. With 47 present, 18 excused, we do have a quorum. Representative Tatone.
Madam Speaker, you know, the Journal is
has been around since the territory's been around. There's a lot of information in the journal, and it is the keeper of the history of what goes on here. And I move that the journal of Thursday, April 16th, 2026 be approved and corrected by the chief clerk.
Members, you have heard the motion that the journal be approved as corrected by the chief clerk. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Members, announcements and introductions. Representative Woodrow, happy day to you.
Happy day to you, Madam Speaker. It's an honor to serve with you.
It is an honor to serve with you.
Good morning, colleagues. Please join me in welcoming the fifth grade students from Denver Academy here in Denver, Colorado. Denver Academy is widely regarded. Oh, thank you. Stand up, guys.
Please stand up.
Stand up and be welcomed. Denver Academy is widely regarded as a standout private school known for its highly personalized and supportive approach to education. Founded in 1972, it serves students in grades 2 through 12 with small class sizes and a strong emphasis on individualized learning, allowing teachers to tailor instruction to each student's strengths and needs. What makes Denver Academy especially notable is its focus on students with diverse learning profiles, including those with dyslexia, ADHD, and other learning differences. The school uses a student-centered model with close collaboration between teachers, parents, and students, helping build confidence and academic success. Now, the coolest part about Denver Academy's visit this year is that we are joined by my son, a fifth grader at Denver Academy, Ari Woodrow, and it just so happens to be his 12th birthday today. And if you would be so kind as to join me in singing happy birthday to Ari, that'd be great. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ari. Happy birthday to you. Thank you all so much. Thank you for being here. Happy birthday, Ari.
That's cool. Happy birthday, Ari. Additional announcements. Seeing none. Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move to proceed out of order for consideration of memorial.
Seeing no objection, we will proceed out of order for consideration of memorials. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to Senate Joint Memorial 001.
Senate Joint Memorial 1 by Senators Cutter and Marchman, also Representative Wilford, concerning memorializing Senator Faith Winter.
Representative Wilford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move Senate Joint Memorial 001 and ask for it to be read at length.
Mr. Schiebel, please read our memorial.
Whereas Faith Winter, our beloved colleague, passed away on November 26, 2025. And whereas a native fifth-generation Coloradan, Senator Winter attended Littleton High School and the University of Redlands. And whereas that she would end up in the state legislature working on transportation and climate issues surprised few who knew her as a young organizer. She interned with the Colorado Environmental Coalition and trained with the Green Corps, eventually serving as National Program Director for EnviroCitizen, a sustainability-focused initiative, and Program Director for Colorado Conservation Voters, which works to protect the state's climate and advance environmental justice. And whereas Senator Winter was elected to the Westminster City Council in 2007, often the youngest woman and mom at the City Council's dais, she would spend her entire career opening doors and pulling out chairs for women, ensuring that they had a seat at the same table. And whereas Senator Winter represented the people of Adams County in the Colorado House of Representatives from 2005 through 2019, and the people of Adams, Broomfield, and Weld counties in the Colorado Senate from 2019 until her death. And whereas a mentor and champion of women throughout conventional halls and at community centers and kitchen counters, and with organizers like the White House Project, Emerge Colorado, and Vote Run Lead, Senator Winter encouraged women to take the microphone and then the ballot. training many future leaders to run for office. But her support did not stop there. As a progressive governance academy trainer, she shared her time and seemingly boundless energy to assist newly elected leaders across the country. And whereas named one of Governing Magazine's Public Officials of the Year in 2018 and one of 5280 Magazine's Disruptors changing the local political landscape in 2019, while Senator Winter was often recognized for her individual contributions, she always worked to shine the light on others. "We lift as we rise" was her mantra. And whereas one of her most important legacies, the Paid Family and Medical Leave Insurance Act, came to fruition in 2020, Senator Winter's advocacy and legislative work helped pave the way for the successful initiative. She spent years losing forward, as she called it. When she would introduce a bill, she knew that, even though it might not pass, its defeat would give organizers more time to build the coalition and refine the policy. And whereas, but more than 200 of Senator Winter's bills did pass. In 2021, she was the Senate prime sponsor on House Bill 21-1266, the Environmental Justice Act, which strengthened regulations on greenhouse gas emissions and centered communities disproportionately impacted by pollution. The next year, Senate bills she sponsored instituted free fares for clean air on public transportation throughout the state and created the Rural Healthcare Workforce Initiative to financially support students in the healthcare field so they could practice in and better serve the people of rural Colorado. And whereas Senator Winter worked with her colleagues across the aisle to pass bipartisan bills on conservation easements, protection orders for crime victims, and affordable housing programs for victims of abuse, soil health, and ballot access for candidates with disabilities. And whereas during her 10 sessions under the dome, Senator Winter chaired the Transportation and Energy Committees in the Senate and the House, vice-chaired the House Business Affairs and Labor Committee, and the Senate Health and Human Services Committee, and served on many more, including Legislative Council, the Transportation Legislative Review Committee, and the Colorado Youth Advisory Council Committee. And whereas a longtime supporter of animal rights and former board member of Broomfield's Butterfly Pavilion, Senator Winter brought a special guest, the pavilion's Rosie the Tarantula, to the Senate floor several years in a row. Queso, one of her 4 beloved dogs, could often be seen roaming the second floor, sometimes in a tuxedo. And whereas, as caring as she was driven, the small stick of dynamite tattooed on Senator Winter's arm was a fitting metaphor for her spark, her potential, and the transformative power she wielded in order to make a lasting impact on and to improve the lives of every person in the state. And whereas she fought, often in flip-flops, for Coloradans to breathe clean air and to spend more time with their families, she cared about and ran bills to help coal workers, working moms, and eating disorder patients. She empowered legislative aides and tenants to protect transgender people and to make sure high school students had access to menstrual products. She was bold and resilient, grounded, and persistent. And whereas Colorado is a better place because of a little girl who was grateful for waterfalls and rainbows, and who grew up to dedicate her life to public service, helping to protect those precious resources as she championed renewable energy, electric vehicles, and public transportation. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the 75th General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the House of Representatives concurring herein, that in losing Faith Winter, the people of the state of Colorado have lost a devoted public servant, an invaluable friend and colleague who led, listened, legislated, and laughed with her whole heart. That we extend our deep and heartfelt sympathy to her family and friends, and that we pay tribute to a woman who believed that every Coloradan was worth fighting for, and we remember the caring warrior she was as we continue her work to create a greener, fairer, and kinder Colorado.
Representative Wilford.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you to all of the members that showed up today. I do really appreciate it. I also appreciate everybody that has come to, or that showed up after Senator Winter passed away, not only at her memorial here at the Capitol, but also for this resolution in the Senate, and then also today. We just heard all of the incredible policy wins that Senator Winter championed, and she did so with the greatest amount of love and care for this state that she called home. In fact, her family called home for 5 generations. I want to just spend a few minutes telling you about the person that I knew. And I want to start by sharing some lyrics from one of her favorite songs, Wildflowers and Wild Horses by Lainey Wilson. The chorus says, "I'm 5 generations of blazing a trail, through barbed wire valleys and overgrown dells. I'm barefoot and bareback and born tough as nails. I'm 4/5 of reckless. I push like a daisy through old sidewalk cracks. Yeah, my kind of crazy's still running its courses with wildflowers and wild horses. What most folks don't know is she also, in addition to her little stick of dynamite tattoo, she also had a tattoo of a daisy pushing up through concrete. And it came from this song. And we were in Atlanta for a conference, and we had just finished dinner, and she was like, hey, let's go get a tattoo. And I was like, you're crazy. But we did it anyway, because we always did the crazy things when Faith got a big idea. And we went, and that's what she got. I think we can all agree that this job is incredibly hard. It's incredibly difficult. And she and I, since we both started at City Council and worked our way up, we were both a part of an organization called the Young Elected Officials Network. And this was really a place that was intended to build community and intended to help young elected officials get the skills and the support to be able to continue to serve in a really ugly environment, one that literally asks everything from you and politicizes your very worst days as a moral failing. And what I want every Coloradan to know is that a substance use disorder is not a moral failing. It's not. It is a sickness. It is a disease. It is not a moral failing. Every single one of us is more than our worst day. And I hope that none of us ever has our worst day on the front of a newspaper for our kids to read about every day, to be reminded of their biggest struggle. Because in spite of her biggest struggle, she moved mountains. But I share all of this because it's not just Senator Winter that struggled. We've lost 3 other young elected officials in the last 6 months. 1 to suicide, actually 2 to suicide, and 1 earlier this month to domestic violence. People had bright futures, but this job takes a toll, and every big policy win comes at a cost to someone. She and I used to talk a lot about how, as a woman, and a woman especially in this work, there's this expectation that you're warm as toast and tough as nails. You're supposed to be both of those extremes at the same time. And just how frustrated she would be when she had a big idea and she'd speak up and someone would pat her on the head and tell her, oh, that's cute. And she loved Taylor Swift, so I want to share some lyrics from one of her favorite Taylor Swift songs called The Man. I would be complex. I would be cool. They'd say I played the field before I found someone to commit to. And that would be okay for me to do, because every conquest I had made would make me more of a boss to you. I'd be a fearless leader. I'd be an alpha type. When everyone believes you, what's that like? I'm so sick of running as fast as I can, wondering if I'd get there quicker if I was a man. And I'm so sick of them coming at me again, because if I was the man, then I'd be the man. They'd say I hustled, put in the work. They wouldn't shake their heads and question how much of this I deserve. What I was wearing, if I was rude, could all be separated from my good ideas and power moves. And they toast to me, oh, let the players play. And I'd be just like Leo in Saint-Tropez. She was a person who deeply believed in the power of women's leadership. And I know that so many of us are here today because she believed in our leadership, asked us to run for office, trained us to run for office, saw something in us that we didn't see in ourselves. And she is part of the reason I would argue a huge part of the reason that Colorado has one of the highest majorities of women serving in a state capital in the entire nation. And she believed that as you rise, as you continue to take on more and more responsibility as you reach that higher office, that you don't just close the door behind you, that you reach out a hand and that you pull someone up there with you. And so my challenge to all of you is keep the door open. Pull someone up with you. Just because somebody else is making amazing moves, power moves, doesn't mean that you can't too. And I want to end with this. I brought you all some of her most favorite things today, and I left them, well, the sergeants left them on your desk, if we want to be precise about it. But first, AML Bacon had these made, but they say, lift as you rise, so that you always have a reminder to keep the door open and extend a hand. Skittles. There are no purple ones. She was a monster. She hated purple Skittles. So you can have Skittles and taste the rainbow, except for the purple ones. I also gave you seeds. Faith loved flowers. She also loved pollinators and butterflies and believed in their connection to this earth and the need for them for a sustainable future. So I ask you to plant your wildflowers and watch them grow. And then I gave you a Colorado adventure bucket list. And what's really cool is when you turn it around, you get to scratch it off. And they're all different places across our state. This one's from Arvada. You're supposed to scratch them off and go and check out something that maybe you haven't gotten to do in Colorado yet. And I shared these with you because she loved, to her bones, Colorado. As you heard me say earlier, she was a fifth-generation Coloradan and always believed that there was another adventure ahead of us. And so I invite you to join in the adventure and go and explore somewhere wonderful within our state. But most of all, please take care of each other. This work is hard. It takes a toll. It comes at a cost. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your hearts. Take care of your families. And lift as you rise. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is the adoption of Senate Joint Memorial 001. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Lindsay, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Lindsay votes yes. Representative Rutenell, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Rutenell votes yes. Representative Ferre, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ferre votes yes. Please close the machine. 50 ayes, 0 no, 15 excused. Senate Joint Memorial 001 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Representatives Rutenell and Lindsay co-sponsor. Representative Ferre co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Schiebel, please read the reports from committees of reference.
Committee on Appropriations, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following: House Bills 1028 as amended, 1075 as amended, 1078 as amended, 1227 as amended, 1287, 1298 as amended, 1307, 1317 as amended, and 1338 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that the following bills be made special orders on April 17th, 2026 at 9:32 a.m. House Bill 1317, Senate Bill 85, Senate Bill 95, Senate Bill 60, House Bill 1075, House Bill 1078, Senate Bill 153, Senate Bill 83, Senate Bill 19, House Bill 1227, House Bill 1338, House Bill 1298, and House Bill 1245.
Seeing no objection, the bills listed by the Majority Leader will be made special orders today, April 17th at 9:32 a.m. Representative Woodrow. Members, you have heard the motion. Seeing no objection, Representative Woodrow will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for reading a bill at length. Committee reports are printed and in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen on iLegislate and in today's folder on your box account. Bills will be laid over upon the motion of the Majority Leader, and the court rule is relaxed. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of House Bill 1317.
House Bill 1317 by Representatives McCluskey and Taggart, also Senators Bridges and Frizzell, concerning creating a unified system of post-secondary talent development and in connection therewith creating a committee to develop a plan to transition oversight of workforce development programs to the Department of Higher Education.
Madam Speaker,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is an honor to serve with you.
it is an honor to serve with you.
I move House Bill 1317 and the committee report from Education and the committee report from Appropriations.
To the Appropriations Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today in Appropriations, we removed any reimbursements for travel or other expenses for participation in the Transition Advisory Committee for this bill, which brought the fiscal note down to 0. I ask for an aye vote.
Committee, any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Appropriations Committee report is passed. To the Education Committee report. Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the Education Committee, we did make several adjustments, both to acknowledge that adult learners and adult education belongs within the reimagining of our Department of Higher Ed. We made adjustments to the Transition Advisory Committee membership, including additional participants as well as clarifying the organizations they represented. And we concluded by making sure that those departments that may be considered as part of this transition remain as Type 1 entities and are not impacted with those changes due to our bill. I ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion on the Education Committee report? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the adoption of the Education Committee report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes clearly have it. The Education Committee report is passed. To the bill, Representative Taggart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
It is an honor to serve with you.
I would ask all of us in the chamber to consider two types of individuals and families. First, a first-generation family, a family that parents have never been to any form of an institution of higher education. And the second group I would ask you to think about is an adult in today's world that's going through a major transition. And as we know, those transitions are going to come upon us very quickly, especially with the adoption of AI. And then think about this. Those two groups of people in today's world in Colorado must navigate an overwhelming set of options. Those individuals have to navigate 472 schools in the arena of higher education or training, 300 apprenticeship programs, 4,500 eligible training programs, and nearly 10,000 degree options. That's hard enough for those two groups. And then consider that we have that spread across 20 divisions of state government and 7 departments. Where do they start? How do they find the right program? What door do they enter within our state government? And thus, the purpose of this bill is to look at, by way of a transition advisory committee, how can we pull all of these many programs together in one potential department that make it considerably easier for that first generation family and for adults going through a major transition in jobs. And I would ask you to consider that and vote aye on this bill.
Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Colorado has a deep economic and civic interest in making sure that we are raising the future workforce to be well-educated, well-skilled, trained in the jobs not only of today but of the future. This state, over the past 8 years that I have been in office, has invested in creating more opportunities for high school students to explore the big blur space, earn college credentials while still in high school, experience new career opportunities through CTE programs, internships, and apprenticeships. This bill, 1317, helps us bring our work over the last 8 years together and recognize that we need to do a better job as the state of Colorado in providing every young person and old person an opportunity to go to one place, a one-stop shop, where they can get the information, support, and financial resources they need in order to achieve the career and life of their dreams here in our great state. We are joined today by the 5th grade class from an elementary school, and it is awfully exciting to have so many young minds here. And I'm guessing if I asked them today, what they wanted to be when they grow up, they'd have a lot of exciting answers. When I was their age, I wanted to be an actress or an author or an artist. Those were my dreams. And today, as I conclude my time in office, I have to start thinking again, what do I want to be in the next chapter of my life? I remember who I wanted to be when I grow up. I hope these young people do too. And with this bill, we're going to be providing better pathways, better opportunities for every person in this state to lead and live their own Colorado dream. I ask for an aye vote on House Bill 1317.
Representative Garcia-Sander.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For my colleagues who sometimes question bills coming out of the Education Committee, I'm going to say this is a really good bill. It consolidates and streamlines bureaucracies. So please vote yes on this bill.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1317? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1317. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. 1317 is passed. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of Senate Bill 85.
Senate Bill 85 by Senators Frizzell and Ball, also Representatives Duran and Hartsook, concerning military protection orders and in connection therewith, a peace officer's duty to determine whether a military protection order exists when responding to an incident of domestic violence, and a requirement for the court to consider the existence of a military protection order as relevant evidence when determining whether to issue a temporary civil protection order.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 85 and the Judiciary Committee report.
To the Judiciary Committee report, Madam Majority Leader.
In Judiciary, we ran an amendment to provide clarity on the process for law enforcement and checking the database, and I ask for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on the Judiciary Committee report? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the adoption of the Judiciary Committee report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Judiciary Committee report is passed. To the bill, Representative Hartsook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning and happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, sir. Shabbat shalom.
So, members, we had a great discussion in Judiciary on this bill. The discussion centered around which came first, the chicken or the egg. In the end, we decided to scratch it. We took it off, and we got a unanimous vote. We urge an aye vote. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the bill? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 85. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 85 is passed. And that's how it's done. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of Senate Bill 95.
Senate Bill 95 by Senator Weissman, also Representatives Froelich and Wilford, concerning measures to support victim survivors of certain crimes that do not include changes to substantive criminal offenses.
Representative Froelich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 95 and the Judiciary Committee report.
To the Judiciary Committee report, Representative Froelich.
Thank you. In Judiciary, we ran an amendment from the AG to clarify some language, and we asked for an aye vote on the Judiciary Committee report.
Is there any further discussion on the Judiciary Committee report? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the adoption of the Judiciary Committee report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Judiciary Committee report is passed. To the bill, Representative Froelich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, measures to support victims, survivors of crime come from, this bill generates from victim survivors. Have you checked on the women in your life lately? Because a lot of us are not okay. What started as a somewhat facetious question on the internet, would you rather be alone in the woods with a man or a bear, has shocked the world in the vast percentage of people, women, who have chosen bear. When fathers are asked, would you rather your daughter be alone in the woods with a man or with a bear? Fathers are saying bear. And why are they saying that? Because when victim survivors come forward, they have a 2% chance of getting a case even prosecuted. and an even slimmer chance of getting a conviction. We live in a world where a CNN report just reported a website with 62 million visits that is an academy that tells you how to put your wife to sleep for the purposes of assaulting her. And on that website, you can view those assaults for $20. 62 million visits to that website in 1 month. We asked for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 95? Representative Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this bill was heard in Judiciary, and when we have bills that come before, well, when I have a bill that comes before me, I generally believe that if there's something that needs to be worked on in the bill, I'm more than willing to help and work on this bill. One of the issues is the sponsor, this bill specifically states that the jury no longer needs to be in the same room with the defendant. I believe that at no point should you not be allowed to face your jury. That is one of the tenets of every bit of jurisprudence and constitutional law that I know. The idea that in a criminal case, a defendant could be in a different room, not because they've done anything, not the innocent until proven guilty, not because they've moved any amount, not because they've been disrespectful to anyone, not for any other reason than because of this law and because of this bill. And so I don't believe I can support this bill. I've told that to the sponsors. I have a respect for the process, but you should be able to at least, if you can't face your accuser, you should be able to be in the same room with the jury that's going to decide your fate. And so I'm not in support of this bill at this time.
Representative Soper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And for the same reasons as my good colleague from Denver, I also can't support this bill. I really want to, so it pains me to say that. But in our system of laws, under the Sixth Amendment, right to face your accuser, and that's been confirmed in Crawford against Washington. So the idea that the defendant is not in the same room as the jury, and that the ability to test the veracity of what's being said in real time, it changes. Think about when someone reacts on Zoom versus in person. You can see a different facial expression in person. People respond differently in person. That's the reason why we have the confrontation clause, the ability to see other subtle gestures that may not appear on a screen, and a screen can block out a lot of things. And it pains me to have to come down here and say that I'm going to be a no vote, but it is so difficult to see this in a bill. And we have to respect the Constitution. We have to respect the fact that this is part of our system of justice, and this is how you test the veracity for truthfulness. So, members, I'll be a no vote.
Representative Espinoza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise, as did my fellow legally trained and lawyer, to also indicate that I'll be a no vote on this bill. I think it's an excellent bill, except for this one issue. Well, I have two issues with the bill, neither of which could be resolved, my understanding is because the Senate sponsors would not agree. And I just want to put on the record that I really value my colleagues in the House for taking the issues that we raised to the Senate and seeing if they would concur. But because that was not going to be possible, my understanding is they would not strike this jury from the presence of the victim. But I also want to clarify, I don't see this as a direct confrontation, lack of confrontation, because we have recognized in our court's history that video testimony is allowed. So it's not specifically confrontation that's wrong, but what it is it's a prejudice to the defendant which undermines their due process. That is, and the district attorney said, the reason we want the jury in with the witnesses is so they could be impacted by the emotional testimony that the victims are giving. The trial system is based on a fairness of the jury evaluating the defendant's response to those witnesses, not based on being swayed by the emotional impact of being in what might be relatively close quarters in another courtroom without having the benefit of assessing that impact on the defendant who they are supposed to be making the determination of guilt or innocence about. So that's my issue as I interpret the confrontation / due process issue on the jury question. I raised a second concern with this bill in that originally there was a question that I had with regard to how could we even do this arbitration question that's also in the bill? Because doesn't that violate the other terms? However, there's a federal statute which addresses that issue, and I then withdrew my objection with regard to the arbitration clause. However, in this statute as written right now, we're in accordance with the federal law referring to tribal courts or tribal law. So if it's a domestic violence harm as defined under tribal law, that is also being brought into this bill. However, no one decided to talk to the tribes again about the inclusion of that provision in the statute, triggering any thought that maybe then we should also include the tribal courts into the application of the bill. So we're applying the tribal law. So if somebody's been had a sexual assault or domestic violence assault in a tribal court or under those tribal definitions, they fall within the statute. But we're not equally applying this to the tribal courts because we don't have that in the bill. This was another question that I raised because I think we should be stakeholding with the tribes. We should include, if we're going to reference their law, we should make sure we've done our rest of our homework and include them in the provisions of the statute. And those two defects are the reason that I will be voting no.
Any further discussion on Senate Bill 95? Representative Carter.
I move L11 to Senate Bill 95.
Please give us a moment to display the amendment. To the amendment, Representative Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an articulation of the conversation that myself, Representative Soper, and Representative Espinoza were having. This is directly related to an individual should be allowed to at least have the jury that is going to determine their fate. That individual should be in the same room as the jury. I want to reiterate, I understand the concept regarding closed-circuit TV for special witnesses. I'm not fighting against that. It is already in the Children's Code. That is already something we're doing. I also understand the concept of a witness not being in the same room as the defendant. But it is highly prejudicial for the defendant not to be in the same room with the jury that's going to determine his or her fate. And I'm asking for an aye vote for Amendment 11.
Representative Soper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I also support this amendment. With this amendment, I would be a yes vote on the bill. It addresses the concerns that we've had. And I will say my two colleagues from Denver are a little bit more eloquent on this point than I was, so I won't belabor it. Vote yes.
One is from Aurora. Any further discussion? Representative Froelich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to express my appreciation for folks bringing this amendment, taking the time to draft it, and yet not having the time to have a conversation with the bill sponsors about it. That's awesome. To make sure that what exists in statute currently is altered, and to make sure that what came from the Senate, where they have a couple lawyers, I'm pretty sure, with a 2-no vote margin in the Senate, through Judiciary Committee, unanimously in the Senate, 1 no vote in the House. This bill is about victims and survivors and their rights in the courtroom. It has been through this whole process with that in mind. We ask for a no vote.
Representative Carter.
So, I believe in this process. I believe in the decorum. So, I voiced my issues in committee. I had an understanding that those issues would be addressed. The issues were never addressed, and so I am down here. If we want to make it about victims versus defendants, I will lose in this court. I will lose in this floor every time. I know that. But if it's about process, if it's about the fact that a defendant should have due process, I will not only lose, but I will go down fighting and swinging. Do you understand that at a certain point, innocent until proven guilty has to mean something in this room? I completely understand a special victim or a special witness needing to be behind a closed circuit television. I'm not even fighting that. I'm not. I understand if they don't want to be in the same room. I'm not even fighting that. What I am fighting is the right to due process and face not only your accuser, but the 12 people who are going to determine whether or not you go to prison. I have tried to work with the sponsors. I told them how I felt. I sent them text, email. I have done what I'm supposed to do. I will not be impugned because I actually asked them to do something and they did not. I'm asking for an aye vote on Senate Bill or Amendment 11, not because I didn't do my job, but because I did.
Representative Froelich.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And let's just focus on what this amendment is about. This is a motion to the judge. It is not a piece of law that says the jury is here or the jury is there. This is a motion you can make among a series of things that you can request when when the survivor has asked to be on closed circuit. So the reason for one of the main reasons for the bill is this portion where victims have asked to not be in the courtroom with the accused. And one of the things that a judge can decide via motion is where the jury is located. And again, that made it through the whole Senate. Our colleague had a question in committee. We have had exchanges about that question. We did not know it was going to manifest in an amendment, but that's fine. It has manifested in an amendment, and we're asking for a no vote.
Any further discussion on Amendment L11? Seeing none. Representative Carter.
I will not be impugned on the House floor. Division.
Members, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment 011. A division has been requested. All those in the chamber not entitled to vote, please sit and remain seated. Representative Wolford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am surprised by this amendment. And I'm going to ask for a no vote, and I want to explain why. Did we hear the concerns in committee from the good representative from Aurora? Yeah, we heard the concerns. Did we have a conversation after committee? Yes. Did I do my due diligence and follow up with the bill sponsors and the advocates? Yes, I did. And what I told the representative from Arapahoe County was that we could not do this. And I told him why. And that's because we already allow the jury to be present in cases where the plaintiff is a child or an individual with a developmental disability. We are mirroring that statute. And if you look at page 10, line 23, it says only the following individuals may. It says may be in the room. It does not require the jury to move. It says may. And I would argue to my colleague from Aurora that yes, the jury does decide one person's fate, but they also determine another's as well. These cases are not just one-sided. And I would also argue that most survivors do not see their day in court. To get to this point at which there is a jury trial is a big deal. Most survivors don't report because they're not believed. To get to this point means they not only found the person, but there was credible evidence to move it forward. And if the jury wants to understand the impact on the plaintiff, then they should have that ability. This amendment is about whether or not we tie the jury's hands or whether or not we provide them the flexibility if and when a judge determines that the person who is there because they're a survivor of a case that involves human trafficking, domestic violence, stalking, should have the ability to provide remote testimony via closed circuit television. I would ask for a no vote on this amendment.
Any further discussion? Representative Mabry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do just want to flag that I share the concerns of the representative from Arapahoe County and the representative from Delta on anything that we're doing that might impede on the confrontation clause. I take that very seriously. I think everybody in this room knows that I take due process and the fundamental principle that you are innocent until you are proven guilty in this country very seriously. I interpret the language starting on page 10 and going on to page 11 in the bill as permissive. And for that reason, I do not view this amendment as necessary. I understand the concern of not wanting to be in a position where the jury is not in the room with the defendant. I get that. We probably do. There probably are many strong arguments in any given case for a jury to be in the room with the defendant when somebody is testifying, when they're being confronted with their accuser. But as Rep. Espinoza has explained, courts have already ruled that it's not a violation of the Confrontation Clause to have somebody testify remotely over Zoom. And so what this language in the bill says is the following individuals may be in the room with the victim survivor, has a whole list, and then on line 7, that includes the jury. So that's permissive. The judge could easily make the opposite conclusion and say, okay, this witness testifies remotely, either from their home, maybe from another room in the court, but that they will have the defendant in the room with the jury. And for those reasons, I do not believe that the court's hands are tied by the language in the bill. I also, with all respect to the sponsor of the amendment, I understand, why you want to be as clear as possible. I just do not think that it's necessary.
Representative Espinoza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise to clarify. My concession that closed circuit testimony has been allowed is very different from the question that we're asked to vote on right now. The good sponsor has indicated that the issue has been settled because we have it in child testimony. But during the judiciary hearing, I specifically asked the attorneys who were relying on the U.S. Supreme Court case of Maryland versus Craig what that case decided, and specifically whether that case decided this question of whether the jury should be present in the room. And there's two important factors in that case. The first is that case was dealing with a child witness, not an adult witness. And the second factor is, in that case, the court did not answer the question of whether the jury should be present or not present because it was not raised in the case. So there is no precedent. When we established the child witness testimony, this section was in the statute. I will suggest, at least from what my experience in this chamber is, there may not have been very many attorneys at the time that was drafted to do the kind of check and verification that we are now trying to do in the Judiciary Committee. I would also suggest that there's a substantial difference between a child witness and an adult witness. And an adult's right to have the jury present in your courtroom when you are being confronted by your accuser, I believe is a paramount right. And so I don't think it's a problem to have two separate statutes. We're not saying that we should change the child statute, but there are different factors involved in this circumstance. The permissive nature that my good colleague from Denver talked about, which means that this is okay because the judge doesn't have to let this happen, however, should raise some concerns because that means in every case, guess what's going to happen? There'll now be a factual determination that the judge must make because we're not telling the judge whether that should happen or not by eliminating the jury in the courtroom. In every case, the prosecutor will get up and argue the jury needs to be in with that victim because, as I said, the proponent district attorney said, yes, we want that emotional impact of the victims to be recognized when they're testifying. And the defense attorneys are going to get up and they're going to argue this is a violation and we have rights under due process and confrontation. And so you're forcing a determination in every case by the judge that my belief is should be up to us to make. And that we can and should make the difference between adults and children in this circumstance, which is my understanding of why the Senate sponsor did not want to make this change. But I think we can make this change and say, simply striking, the most important part of this is to strike line 7, which just says the jury won't be one of the parties allowed in with the victim witness testifying. They're not going to be denied that access, and the protection that we're trying to do in this bill is to the victim themselves. That still happens. That is what this bill is about. And so I would encourage a yes vote on this amendment.
Any further discussion on Amendment L011? Representative Luck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I didn't hear this in committee. I'm hearing it in real time on the floor. And I just want to put out there the idea that if those who are considering rejecting this amendment would understand what was just said related to that decision that will now be left to the judge, without additional guardrails to help the judge make that determination as to what, when, in what situation the jury should be in what room, I think we do the defendant a disservice. And I don't know that with this being a Senate bill, there is time to give clarity to what those guardrails should be, so as if that is an option that the judge has to consider in each case, that they know exactly when and in what settings the jury should stay in what room. And so I support this amendment.
Any further discussion on L011? Representative Soper.
Merci, Mr. Chair.
Darion, Representative Soper.
And members, I also want to talk about the other sovereign, which is the federal government. So when we look at Rules of Criminal Procedure, Rule number 43, it specifically states that the defendant has the right to be in the room with the jury. So in a similar instance where you would be tried before a federal jury, as a defendant, it would not be contemplated. The jury and the defendant would be in the same room. And with this bill, if we don't adopt this amendment, a judge is always going to have to make this determination as to whether or not the jury and the defendant are in the same room or whether they're separated. And that creates now two different standards of justice of how we're interpreting this. Plus, the idea of the defendant being remote only came about during COVID. And that was only because of the idea of social distancing and trying to keep people safe to allow our criminal trials to continue. Otherwise, we had only adopted rules concerning special witnesses that were testifying, but not the defendant, him or herself. And that's where everything is different here. It does change. I mean, if the fate of a person hangs in the jury, they should be able to be in the room. The last point I will make here is this is also a provision specifically laid out in the Declaration of Independence, that our founders were complaining about having trials in which the defendant was not in the same room as the jury. Now, they didn't have remote technology then. I mean, that's a big factor, but the fact that that was one complaint was the defendant needs to be in the same room as the jury, specifically laid out 250 years ago, still relevant today, and we're still debating it. So I'd like to be a yes on the bill, but it requires adopting this amendment first. Thank you.
Any further discussion on L011? Seeing none, members, I reiterate the question before us is the adoption of L011. A division has been requested. All those in the chamber not entitled to vote, please sit and remain seated. All those in favor of Amendment L011, please stand and remain standing in one place, or raise your hand and keep it raised until the count is taken. You may be seated. All those opposed, please stand and remain standing in one place, or raise your hand and keep it raised until the count is taken. Don't forget the wall. You may be seated. Amendment L011 is passed. Back to the bill. Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 95? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 95 as amended. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 95 as amended is passed. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of Senate Bill 60.
Senate Bill 60 by Senators Pelton, R. and Doherty, also Representatives Winter and Hamrick, concerning information about youth athlete mental health training and in connection therewith, requiring mental health training for youth sports coaches and requiring the coaches to notify parents of possible mental health risks associated with concussions.
Representative Hamrick.
Mr. Chair, we move Senate Bill 2660 and the House Health and Human Services Committee report.
To the committee report.
In the committee, we had one amendment that had a couple of technical fixes and also a liability clarification, and we asked for an aye vote.
Any further discussion on the Health and Human Services Committee report? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the passage of the Health and Human Services Committee report. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The report is passed. To the bill, Representative Hamrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, we come to this building to champion legislation for different reasons, whether it is to strengthen consumer protections, address personal lived experiences, or respond to the needs of people of our districts. For this bill, the Alyssa's Youth Concussion and Mental Health Protection Act, the why is rooted in the unthinkable, the loss of a child. Under current law, known as the Jake Snakenberg Youth Concussion Act, coaches are required to take concussion recognition training to identify signs of injury and know when to remove a child from play. Senate Bill 2660 builds upon that foundation by requiring a biennial mental health education course for youth sports coaches. While some youth organizations already prioritize this, many do not. We want to ensure that every coach, who often serves as a vital mentor and role model, is equipped to identify signs of struggle in our children. As a long-distance runner and a long-distance running coach, I've seen firsthand the unique position coaches hold. We aren't just teaching form or strategy, we're often the first line of support for a student-athlete's well-being. This bill also requires that when an athlete is pulled for a suspected concussion, coaches must notify parents and advise them to seek medical and behavioral health guidance regarding the physical, cognitive, and psychological symptoms that can follow such an injury. These measures elevate our coaching standards and, most importantly, work to keep our children safe, and we ask for an aye vote on Senate Bill 2660.
AML Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 60 is practical, low-cost update to framework Colorado has already invested in. We have existing concussion education requirements. We have existing return-to-play protocols. This bill adds the one component that is currently missing, the mental health piece. National Youth Sports Associations have found that when coaches receive brief mental health training, athletes are more likely to disclose emotional distress and seek help earlier, reducing the likelihood of crisis-level interventions down the line. This is a better outcome for athletes, for families, and frankly for the systems that bear the cost when those crises go unaddressed. This bill is straightforward, it's evidence-based, and it builds on where Colorado has already done. We ask for a yes vote on Senate Bill 2660.
Any further discussion on Senate Bill 60? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 60. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 60 is passed. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of House Bill 1075.
House Bill 1075 by Representative Hamrick, also Senator Frizzell, concerning increasing funding for county child welfare prevention services and in connection therewith, continuing the Colorado Child Abuse Prevention Trust Fund and the Colorado Child Abuse Prevention Board.
Representative Hamrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 261075 and the Appropriation Committee report.
To the Appropriations Committee report. Representative Hamrick.
Thank you. The amendment added in the Appropriations Committee is a small amount of federal funds for departure or for the Department of Human Services, and ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Appropriations Committee report is passed. To the bill, Representative Hamrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 261075 is a systems-aligned bill that strengthens county child welfare prevention by making funding more predictable and accessible, particularly for under-resourced counties. The Federal Family First Prevention Services Act allows states to receive federal reimbursement for evidence-based trauma-informed prevention services that keep children safely with their families. Services like mental health treatment, substance use treatment, and in-home parenting supports. Colorado has an approved prevention plan that authorizes reimbursement when these services are delivered to children and families at risk of entering foster care. House Bill 2675 aligns Colorado's structure with the available federal reimbursement stream so that reimbursement can better support counties doing family first prevention work. And by aligning the funding structure with federal reimbursement, the bill creates a clearer incentive for counties to invest in proven prevention services and stretch child welfare resources without requiring new state spending. At its core, House Bill 2675 is straightforward. It builds on the existing prevention funding framework by creating a more direct and reliable pathway for federal family first reimbursement to support county-implemented evidence-based services, helping communities put programs in place and sustain those already serving children and families. I ask for an aye vote on House Bill 261075.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 261075? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 261075. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it. 1075 is passed. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of Senate Bill 153.
Senate Bill 153 by Senators Concurrent and Simpson, also Representatives Bacon and Martinez, concerning graduate academic requirements for a licensed school counselor and in connection therewith establishing a minimum number of credit hours required for special services licensure with a school counselor endorsement.
Representative Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 153.
To the bill. AML Bacon.
Thank you, members. This bill comes to us from our school counselors across the state. We propose here to set the minimum amount of credit hours needed in addition to getting the master's degree, or I'm sorry, kind of in conjunction of getting a master's degree to qualify to be a school counselor. The State Board of Education removed the credit hour qualification by just saying that one needs a master's degree. What the credit hour qualification does is it actually determines that the work that one got for their master's degree is in counseling. And so in order to meet the professional interests and needs of counselors, we bring this bill to you that would say to get your license in counseling, you need to at least have completed 48 credit hours. And with that, we urge an aye vote.
Any further discussion on Senate Bill 153? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 153. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. 153 is passed. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of Senate Bill 83.
Senate Bill 83 by Senators Weissman and Frizzell, also Representatives Soper and Camacho, concerning implementation of the Committee on Legal Services recommendations in connection with legislative review of state agencies' rules.
Representative Camacho.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 2683.
To the bill.
Colleagues, in the Committee on Legal Services, we had robust debate on important regulations continuing for many of the state agencies that are affected. Anything you want to add? Otherwise, we urge yes vote.
Representative Soper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just say it was a little bit shorter than robust, but it was a very good debate.
Any further discussion on Senate Bill 83? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 83. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 83 is passed. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of Senate Bill 19.
Senate Bill 19 by Senators Ball and Bright, also Representatives Sirota and Gonzalez, concerning changes to local early childhood infrastructure and in connection therewith expanding the responsibilities and functions of early childhood councils to include certain responsibilities and functions formerly performed by local coordinating organizations and imposing new accountability requirements.
Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 19.
To the bill. Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill is what I called a good government bill. We are taking two different entities within the early childhood ecosystem at the local level, and we are combining them into a new local lead model that will utilize the early childhood councils as this local lead in our communities to continue the important work that they are doing for providers and families and children in our communities to ensure that people have access to the wide array of early childhood services and programs that we provide, and to ensure that there is that local imprint on it. So essentially the bill is removing the local coordinating organizations from statute, which we had created back in 2022 with House Bill 1295. And instead, the early childhood councils will take on that work as well as the work they have already been doing. And in the Senate, they did amend the bill to provide for a transition time for the 3 local coordinating organizations that are not currently early childhood councils, so that for those 3 communities, they will have this time to transition to this new structure.
Representative Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will just touch briefly. My co-prime did a good job on elaborating the importance of this bill. As you know, we may face some tough decisions to make sure we protect not only higher ed and public ed, but also early childhood, and I think that is something that in our districts we want to make sure we are advocating for and pushing policies that are very effective, especially streamlining the process, as my co-prime just said. And so all this bill does is provide a newer model, which not only replaces the fragmented and underfunded model we currently have, but will also save taxpayers money in the long run. And so we did a lot of stakeholdering with this bill from last summer until February, and I think we've gotten a lot of people on board. There's really no opposition to this. And as my co-prime said, we are emphasizing the importance of local control to make sure we have those voices at the table in our rural schools, making sure that we have a streamlined process to make sure that we protect early childhood, and these ECCs and LCOs to make sure that we have a better process for early childhood. And with that, we ask for an aye vote.
Members, any further discussion on Senate Bill 19? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 19. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Senate Bill 19 is passed. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of House Bill 1338.
House Bill 1338 by Representatives McCormick and Winter, also Senators Roberts and Simpson, concerning the Colorado Water Conservation Board operations and in connection therewith funding projects and making an appropriation.
Representative McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1338.
To the bill. Representative McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, this bill is a bill that we do run every year, and I want you to understand the importance of it. This is an annual bill that the Department of Natural Resources runs to appropriate funding for very important water projects across our state. All of this is done with zero impact to the general fund through the use of the Colorado Water Conservation Board cash funds. And most of the available funds that go out to fund projects are a result of interest earned on water project financing that the CWCB has made around the state, so it's a really great revolving loan program. It does provide a significant opportunity to leverage state investments in water with funding from the federal government and other partners. And these projects that come forward to be supported with these funds are vetted through over an 8-month process that includes approval by the CWCB board and represents each major water basin across our state. I wanted to point out a few things that may be of interest to some members in the room. There is a large loan going out to the city of Fort Collins to support the Halligan Water Supply Project. And again, this is a loan that will be repaid to the CWCB, and it also makes a loan to the Lower Latham Reservoir Company for the Juergens Reservoir construction project. So those are just two of the very important water infrastructure projects that this bill supports. And I urge an aye vote, and happy to be on this bill with my co-prime sponsor.
AML Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I'm also honored to be on this bill with the Chair of Agriculture Committee. This is one of the most important bills DNR runs every year and has become increasingly important given the unprecedented need to advance our water security and drought resiliency efforts. This year's bill includes a total of $69 million in funding for important CWCB programs and projects, including $37.7 million in water plan grant funding, $2.5 million for water forecasting, $1.4 million for water plan action items, and $5 million for wildfire-ready watershed efforts. And the favorite part of this bill for my good colleague from Montezuma County is we've upped and we keep the $6 million flush for the compliance or compact compliance discussion, as we have to constantly fight those in the lower basin as their insatiable thirst. for everything under the sun down there. Yes, ma'am. I have a whole nother theory on how to fix this, but it's very important as we fight to keep water in Colorado and make sure those below us do the same thing. This is the most important thing we do every year, members, to protect our state's precious natural resources and support the implementation of Colorado's water plan. And we ask for an aye vote on this year's projects. Thank you.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1338? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1338. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. 1338 is passed. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of House Bill 1078.
House Bill 1078 by Representatives Smith and Hamrick, also Senators Marchman and Kirkmeyer, concerning increasing the number of off-campus courses offered by institutions of higher education to students in concurrent enrollment programs.
Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1078 and the Appropriations Committee report and the Education Committee report.
To the Appropriations Committee report. Representative Hamrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the appropriations, we ran an amendment that dealt with sort of the funding stream, and we would ask for an aye vote, but we also have another amendment.
Is it to the Appropriations Committee report?
Yes.
Well, then you need to move the amendment before we pass the committee report.
Okay.
Representative Hamrick.
I move L003 to the Appropriations Committee report and ask that it be properly displayed.
Just give us a moment to display the amendment. Representative Hamrick, tell us about L003.
L003 is a technical change, and we ask for an aye vote.
Members, any further discussion on L003? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L003. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it. L003 is passed. Back to the Appropriations Committee report. Back to the Appropriations Committee report. Representative Hamrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the Appropriations Committee, we amended it to sort of strengthen the funding stream for this program, and we ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Appropriations Committee report as amended is passed. To the Education Committee report, Representative Hamrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had an amendment added for the Colorado Community College system, and we ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the Education Committee report? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the adoption of the Education Committee report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Education Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Representative Hamrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colorado's concurrent enrollment program is a state-structured pathway that lets high school students take college courses at no tuition cost, instead of families bearing the cost of the courses. The class is covered by the College Opportunity Fund through school districts. What we are doing is allowing four-year institutions to participate. Four-year institutions must still follow all the existing concurrent enrollment requirements, including the community college rate, transferability of courses, standardized agreements, student disclosures requirements, and teacher qualifications. And we ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion? Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Currently, four-year institutions can only offer concurrent enrollment courses on their own campuses. This has created issues for both the students and the school districts wanting to participate in concurrent enrollment. As students and families continue to look for ways to find accessible and affordable options for higher education, the demand for more concurrent enrollment courses being offered continues to increase. Many students do not have the option to drive to campus to take a course, and many families may not have the option to pay for dual enrollment courses. Multiple school districts have approached universities across the state seeking to expand concurrent enrollment opportunities and strengthen connections between four-year institutions and their high schools. Through these discussions and partnerships, the CU team recognized that legislation is necessary to expand these collaborations and better meet students where they are on high school campuses. I urge an aye vote. This will be both good for K-12 students and four-year institutions. Thank you.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1078? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the adoption or passage of House Bill 1078. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. 1078 is passed. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of House Bill 1227.
House Bill 1227 by Representatives Gilchrist and Bradfield, also Senator Mullica, concerning affirming the rights of children and youth in dependency and neglect proceedings.
Representative Gilchrist.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1227 and the Appropriations Committee report.
For now, please also move the HHS report.
I'm sorry?
You still have to move it.
Okay, I apologize. I move House Bill 1227. I thought I had it correct. The Appropriations Committee report and the Health and Human Services report.
To the Appropriations Committee report.
Perfect. Okay. I move Amendment L007 to the Appropriations Committee report and ask that it be properly displayed.
That's a proper motion. Please give us a moment to display L007. L007 has been displayed. Representative Gilchrist.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a technical fix to the language about the youth's engagement in the hearing. This also brings the counties to a neutral position on the bill, and we ask for a yes vote on this amendment.
Members, is there any further discussion on Amendment L007? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L007 to the Appropriations Committee report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it. L007 is passed. Any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Representative Gilchrist. All right. Seeing none, members, the question before us is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report as amended. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Appropriations Committee report as amended is passed. To the bill, Representative Gilchrist.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, members. We're here today to present House Bill 261227, a bill that goes to the heart of fairness, accountability, and the rights of children and youth in Colorado. I first would like to thank my co-prime for joining me on this bill. I deeply appreciate her work on this and that we can present this policy solution as a bipartisan one. In June 2025, the Colorado Supreme Court issued its decision in People in the Interests of RMP. With that ruling, the court eliminated a nearly 40-year-old safeguard that ensured a child or youth had the right to a hearing before their dependency and neglect case could be dismissed over their objection. The RMP decision reverses precedent. It gives county departments unilateral authority to dismiss dependency and neglect petitions before adjudication, even if a child who is named a party to the case objects. That practical effect is profound. Children and youth can no longer present evidence about their own safety, well-being, or legal status before the case is closed. This ruling is directly at odds with the legislative action, with recent legislative action. In 2022, the General Assembly unanimously passed House Bill 1038, the legislation that made children and youth formal parties to their dependency and neglect proceedings. In 2024, the legislature reinforced those principles in 1017, further securing rights for youth in foster care and reiterating their right to attend and fully participate in all hearings. These laws are not symbolic. They are a clear statement of legislative intent. Children and youth are not bystanders in their own cases. They are parties. They have rights and they have the right to be heard. The solution here is a straightforward one and targeted. The General Assembly can amend the Children's Code to restore the process that existed for nearly 4 decades, requiring a hearing before a dependency and neglect petition is dismissed over a child's objection. This clarification would reaffirm the court's authority to oversee proceedings before it. It would align statute with legislative intent expressed in 2022 and 2024, and it would ensure that children and youth retain the party rights the legislature so clearly intended them to have. This is not about explaining rights beyond what is carefully considered and unanimously adopted. It is about restoring balance. It is about ensuring that no single party has unreviewable authority once the power of the state has been invoked against a family. And it is about honoring our commitment to children, that when decisions are made about their lives, they will not be invisible. For nearly 40 years, Colorado got this right. A narrow legislative fix can ensure that we do so again, and I ask for a yes vote. Thank you.
Representative Bradfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is an unfortunate reality that child abuse and neglect still exists in Colorado, but we do have a robust children's code. And it's built with protections and due process, and it strives to strike a balance between safety and the rights of children and parents. I'm sure some of you have heard that there were concerns that this bill will allow children to weaponize the court and the adjudication process. And among other things, it allows that the court will to make protective orders and order services. The bill does not in any way allow a child or youth to bring a case against their parent or to initiate a petition in any way. A child is only involved in these cases because either DHS or the court determined that there was enough concern to file or order a petition alleging the child was dependent or neglected. And only then would a child or youth have the right as a party to be heard by the court. Nothing in this legislation allows a child or youth to make the determination about whether they are dependent or neglected. That is up to the adults. The judge is the one who makes the final decision based on all the facts and evidence. Supporters of this bill include the Office of the Child's Representative, Colorado CASA, C-A-S-A, the National Association of Counsel for Children, Be the Source, the Kempe Foundation, the Colorado Child Protection Ombudsman Office, and the Colorado Association of Family and Children Agencies. I encourage a yes vote on this bill. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Representative Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we heard this in committee, and I do agree, growing up in an environment of abuse, that children should have their day in court and should be able to speak about not going back into an abusive environment. But we did hear from multiple people, and it was said that the guy that came to testify was paid. It's been cleared up that he actually was not paid for his witness testimony, but he did have his son taken away from him, a 12-year-old taken away from him because his son didn't like the rules placed in the dad's house. And so I asked a lot of different questions because originally I was going to be a yes. And to put it on the record, there were 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans that voted against this bill in a bipartisan fashion because we do believe that parental rights are being weaponized against the parents of Colorado. We've seen it. We've seen it time and time again that parents are losing their children because they're not affirming them. Parents are losing their children because they're too strict. Parents are losing their children because they take their kids to church. So their children are being weaponized against them in the courts. And this is just another bill that is going to allow parents' rights to be taken away from them. That's why there is the Office of the Respondent Children and the Office of the Parents are at odds over this bill because children are being taken away from their parents in this state. And this is another bill that goes after parental rights. And we heard from a father that had his parental rights terminated because of that. And if we continue to run bills against parental rights in a bipartisan fashion, then parents are going to continue to have their rights terminated. This is another way to do that. Children deserve their day in court, but parents also know what's best for them in the multitude of cases. And when there's child abuse and dependency and neglect, we have safeguards in order for that. Children can be heard, and children will be taken out of those rooms or those homes. But we cannot continue to weaponize the good parents in the state that are trying to raise their children against the nonsense that continues to happen. I'm a strong no against this bill. Thank you.
Representative Bottoms.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with some of those sentiments that
I actually like some things about this bill. There's some really good, strong stuff, but it does leave the door open to the state deciding things that the state should not be involved in, and a lot of the parental authority that comes along with this. I know when I was early teenager, I would have loved for this bill to have been around, because then I could use this against my parents. My parents made me go to church. I didn't want to go to church. They made me go to church, and I'm so glad they made me go to church, because I have turned out to be the upstanding, outstanding citizen you see before you now. But at that time, that's not who I was or where I was headed, and so I really think the state doesn't need to be dabbling in these arenas. Yes, we do want children to have these rights, but we also need to understand parental authority and how this has already been weaponized quite a bit against parents. Many parents have lost their children because of this. How many years now of testimony have we heard? How many hundreds and hundreds of people have come in and testified on different bills that are similar to this, that have said the same thing? My children were taken away from me, and I deal with this as a pastor. I deal with this constantly with the Child Protective Services, the courts, everything. Good actors, bad actors, all this. This is the arena I've walked in for 35 years. And I know how it all works. And I know that sometimes there's really good parents that the courts are just clueless about what they're doing. In fact, I would say Child Protective Services and Family Court gets it wrong more than they get it right. And so this is where these things, we have to be very careful with all of this. And I think this bill sets up a bad precedence. I'm not saying it's the intent of the sponsors, but I do know that the outcome will be very dangerous.
1 second, Representative Bottoms. Members, it's getting a little loud in here. Let's bring it down just a little bit so people up front can hear what's happening. Representative Bottoms, my apologies.
Thank you, Chair. I thought it was just me that was getting loud. So I do agree that we need some of this, but this is going to hinder parents. We've already seen it. We will see it again. This will hinder parents. So I would just ask for no vote, but also ask for the bill sponsors, maybe back up and look at the long-term effects rather than just this one child that definitely would need this, or this child. Look at the bigger picture of all the children and all the parents in the process. So I'm definitely a no on this bill.
Representative Brooks.
Chair, thank you. It's been mentioned already a couple of times, and I believe that it's worth mentioning again. Unintended consequences. I mean, man, if I had $1 for every time I came up here, or really any of y'all came up here and talked about the concern over unintended consequences, I think that we'd be able to walk into the next budget season without a structural deficit. Unintended consequences are something we need to be paying attention to. We really need to look at the long term. And if we're looking at the potential for a delay in reunification, that's an unintended consequence. Yeah, I believe that there is a good-hearted nature behind the bill. But again, it's the down the road. If we're moving dependency court cases towards more litigation, then that can obviously then delay reunification between parents and kids. And parents, the kids need to be with the parents. I'm not particularly comfortable anytime we start discussing state matters and family decisions. It makes me a little queasy. I have some trust issues. Not with families. I have trust issues with the state being involved in family matters. So it ought to really come with considerable scrutiny, or at least some discussion to guard against those unintended consequences, giving kids that expanded procedural standing that could delay in a reunification or encourage, honestly, towards more contested proceedings is something I believe that we need to be cautious with, we need to be aware of, we need to be guarding against. Again, when we look at the full picture, I believe that there's a little bit more at play here, irrespective of the good intent of the bill sponsors. So I believe that's something we need to slow down a little bit on, and I would vote no on this. Again, appreciate the intent, but I just don't think this is fully baked. And if it's not fully baked, and there may be some unintended consequences downstream, I believe those are things we need to take seriously. Thank you.
Any further discussion on Representative Gilchrist?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify a few things. So first of all, the amendments that we brought both in committee and in appropriations and today were recommended in close collaboration with the counties, with the Office of Respondent Parent Council, and with OCR. Those are all to make sure that we have safeguards, that this does not end up as an issue, a parental rights issue. The exact opposite has been happening in the last year since RMP happened. And I heard a few comments that that we are thinking about one child, or that we are not thinking about the whole picture. It's the exact opposite. We have seen since the RMP decision that child's rights, a child's right to remain safe, a kid's right to be safe in their placement, is being taken away. And so all this does is make sure that we restore that precedent that was part of Colorado for 40 years. 40 years. This is just safeguarding that right of a child to say, I do not feel safe. That is imperative in our system. And as someone who is intimately involved with child welfare and has a reputation of working with all stakeholders, this is not, there are no unintended consequences of this bill. I want to read an example of what one of the many things that have happened since RMP's decision has been made, and if we don't fix this, we'll continue. The department filed a petition on a 3-year-old child that included information that the toddler ingested THC and was hospitalized due to the risk of death from organ failure. Risk of death from organ failure. Further safety concerns were identified in the home, including a gun on the table within reach of the toddler. An initial shelter hearing, the department moved to dismiss the petition, meaning moved to keep the child in the home. The court expressed concern at dismissing, given the information shared in the petition, and asked for the position of the guardian ad litem, the attorney who represents the child. The GAL expressed concern about dismissal and not providing the family with services and oversight. The court asked the department for more information about the case and where the child was currently. The department refused to provide further information, only stating that the child was safe. The court expressed frustration, but had to grant the dismissal pursuant to the holding in RMP. So that 3-year-old child who was in danger stayed in that position because the judge did not feel like they could make a decision because of RMP. We are trying to fix that for this child and many, many more. This is a simple fix. It is incredibly important, and it protects the child and has nothing to do with parental rights. I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Luck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask the bill sponsors with respect to what... Sorry, I have a question with respect to the amendments that were just passed. The question that I have, if I'm understanding the process that has now been created under the amendments that were adopted in appropes and the amendments that are adopted on the floor, now what happens is the county moves to dismiss the petition, finding that no longer does this need to be adjudicated. The child, through their representative, raises their hand and says, actually, there's a reasonable basis for this to be adjudicated. So long as there's a reasonable basis, the language reads that the court must proceed with a hearing. However, we just adopted an amendment that, if I understood correctly, the county can counter that request and show by a reasonable basis that there isn't a reason to proceed, at which point the court must side with the county. So I'm wondering how the bill sponsors are seeing this going to be played out, because presumably it would be malpractice for a county to say that there is no reasonable basis to proceed forward. Therefore, we're asking for the court to dismiss this, and then and then not hold to that, so to speak, right? Like, presumably the counties aren't just dismissing these neglect cases when they have no basis to do so. And so there's always going to be this tension where the youth is going to raise their hand and say, I have a reasonable basis for this to proceed. The county raises their hand and says, I have a reasonable basis for this not to proceed. And based off of the language that was just adopted, the court is kind of stuck in a must and must. And so they're going to have to decide which party to side with. And I'm just wondering how the bill sponsors see that playing out in the real world as we move forward with this.
Representative Gilchrist.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So that then the court would hear both sides, and then they would make a decision. And I think that's where we think this is incredibly important, that the power of the decision making is within the judicial officer and not just with the county, and that we don't hold the power just with the county, and that by giving that to the judicial officer, we ensure that the child can be heard. And I ask for an aye vote.
Rep. Luck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So presumably it's not actually a must then, right? It's not actually that they must proceed or that they must dismiss. It becomes a matter of discretion. And so therefore the language here doesn't seem to actually work out in practice such that it will allow for the fulfillment of it. I have concerns about that particular piece, though I understand the bill sponsor's intent.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1227. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. House Bill 1227 passes. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1298.
House Bill 1298 by Representatives Ryden and Kelty concerning the authority for criminal background checks for child welfare out-of-home placement providers.
Rep. Ryden.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1298 and the Appropriations Committee report and the Health and Human Services Committee report.
To the Health and Human Services Committee report.
Just had a technical amendment that we adopted for this bill. No concerns.
Okay, any objection to the adoption of the Health and Human Services Committee report? Or all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The Health and Human Services Committee report is adopted. To the Appropriations Committee report.
Thank you, Mr.
Oh. Approbes first. Okay. Sorry. Is there...
We're next.
Okay. Yeah. The committee will go into a brief recess. Okay. Is there any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee? Oh, sorry. The House will come back to order. To the Appropriations Committee report. Rep. Ryden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appropriations report just shows that there will be federal pass-through dollars. So we ask for a yes vote.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report? Or all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the bill. Rep. Ryden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L002 to the bill.
Okay, the committee will stand in a brief recess. It seems like the amendment we have is a draft. The committee will come to order. Okay, L2 is properly displayed. To the amendment. Rep. Ryden.
Thank you. Sorry for all the Hassel. This amendment, it just narrows the language of who these background checks can actually apply to. It's another technical amendment. Our counties caught this, and we were able to make the adjustment today. So we asked for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on L2? Seeing none, the motion before us is the adoption of L2. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The amendment is adopted. To the bill. Rep. Ryden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the problem we have is the FBI, they need statute authority to run background checks required for kids in foster care. So this would be for those providing the actual placement, so maybe the host family. This could be people providing services in the home to that kiddo. And interesting, there was a bit of an oopsie when the Office of Early Childhood was created. The authority was accidentally repealed. So the solution is kind of this bill, which puts the statute authority back, allowing that. Then it'll allow us to access the Title IV-E funding. That's the pass-through money that we talked about through the Appropriations Committee report. We just want to make sure that kids are safe and that the placement options are safe. So we ask for a yes vote on this bill.
Representative Kelty. That was a change of voice. Thank you, Madam Chair. Everyone, I am up here definitely in support. I'm co on this. I support this bill. It's basically a fixed bill, and I'm glad that Representative Ryden had brought this forward. So this bill basically updates state law so that background checks for foster care and other child welfare placements comply with the Federal Bureau of Investigation standards. The FBI previously granted Colorado a temporary grace period to conduct these checks, but that period expires in May of 2026, right around the corner. This bill provides counties and the Colorado Department of Human Services the statutory authority needed to continue performing these checks through the FBI system. These background checks apply only, and I repeat, only to individuals involved in foster care and child welfare placements, and do not expand to any other areas. This bill is basically to help keep our kids safe, especially our most vulnerable. The bill helps ensure that individuals with histories of harming children are not considered as foster care givers. It also allows child welfare agencies to identify crimes committed outside of Colorado, ensuring a more complete national background check when placing vulnerable children. Overall, it strengthens protections for children in foster care while keeping Colorado compliant with federal standards. Without this bill in place, we will not be able to identify someone coming from outside the state into Colorado who basically want to get their hands on kids, and we definitely want to prevent that. So, this is a very, 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 very much needed bill, legislation, to help keep our foster kids safe. So please, everyone, be a yes. Is there further discussion on House Bill 1298? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1298. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. House Bill 1298 passes. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of House Bill 1245.
House Bill 1245 by Representative Kelty concerning theft by contractors.
Representative English.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L001 to, oh wait, okay. Take that back. I move House Bill 1245.
Thank you. To the bill.
Okay. Now, I would like to move Amendment L001 to House Bill 1245.
Thank you. That is a proper motion. Give us a moment.
Sorry.
Oh. Yeah. It's the end of the day.
It's Friday.
That's fine. Okay. Someone's small. I don't know if he's going to do it.
Yeah, you can.
It is properly displayed to the amendment. Representative Kelty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Everyone, this amendment is a very clean and simple amendment. Yesterday, we went through this bill on second reading,
and it came to light that there were a couple areas that needed to be filled, a few cracks that we didn't want anyone to fall through. And I went through with AML Bacon, and this actually is exactly what she wanted. I said absolutely 100%. She went over it with one of the legal individuals that, I'm not sure I can name them, but anyway, so everything is copacetic with this bill, and it cleans it up, makes it stronger, and I ask for a yes vote.
Is there further discussion on L001? Seeing AML Bacon.
Sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the sponsors. I just wanted to speak to the amendment and recognize why we see this language. If you recall, when it was on seconds last, we wanted to tie the behavior more to a criminal behavior. Knowingly in law just means you're making a conscious decision to do anything. It doesn't necessarily mean to steal. And then the other piece, abandonment, striking that, material non-performance is a contract law issue. What happens there is you look at the contract, you determine if the terms were met. That's not necessarily something that happens in criminal court. And so if they have a criminal mind to steal, stop, not finish the project, that's what this amendment does. And I'd like to thank the sponsors.
Is there further discussion on L001? Further discussion of Representative English?
Oh, no, we just asked for a yes vote on this amendment.
Any further discussion on L001? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L001 to House Bill 1245. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Amendment L001 is adopted. To the bill, Representative Kelty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Colorado HB 26-1245, take two.
Just say.
Theft by contractor. So, members, Colorado homeowners deserve protection from bad actors who exploit trust, vulnerability, and financial hardships. This bill, the theft by contractor bill, is a necessary and timely step towards protecting consumers, especially senior citizens and families of limited economic means, from contractor fraud. Across our state, scammers pose as trusted contractors are targeting Colorado homeowners, especially some of our most vulnerable residents. Seniors living on fixed incomes and hardworking families struggle to make ends meet are being approached with urgent and low-cost, unbelievably low-cost repair offers like roof damage, foundation issues, plumbing emergencies, or storm-related repairs. These individuals are pressured into paying large upfront deposits with promises that work will begin immediately. Instead, the so-called contractor disappears before or partially through the project, leaving the homeowner without repairs and without money they can least afford to lose, sometimes leaving the home in such unsafe conditions from tearing it up to appear to do work. This is not an isolated problem. Law enforcement agencies across Colorado report receiving calls constantly from victims of contractor theft. However, under current law, many of these cases are treated as civil disputes rather than criminal acts. As a result, police are often unable to intervene effectively, leaving victims to pursue costly and complicated civil litigation, an unrealistic option, especially for many seniors and low-income families who have already lost thousands of dollars. This bill seeks to change that by clearly defining current penalties, taking out of the confusion seen today. For theft by contractor, this bill adds meaningful enforcement tools, teeth, to ensure that law enforcement can act and investigate when fraudulent contractors intentionally take money without performing the promised work. This legislation will empower police and prosecutors to hold bad actors accountable and deter future scams. Importantly, this bill is not anti-contractor. In fact, it strongly supports the many honest, hardworking contractors who serve Colorado communities with integrity. Contractor fraud damages more than individual homeowners. It erodes public trust in the entire industry. When homeowners become fearful of being scammed, legitimate businesses suffer. Small businesses suffer. By holding fraudulent contractors accountable, 1245 will help restore confidence in hiring licensed, reputable professionals for home repairs. Protecting vulnerable residents, supporting ethical businesses, and strengthening consumer protections are goals we could all stand behind. This bill is a balanced and necessary measure to ensure Coloradans are not left defenseless against contractor theft. For these reasons, I ask for a very strong yes.
Representative English.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have anything long and drawn out to say. I just believe it's important to protect our most vulnerable. Representative Kelty, she summed it up, and we worked with stakeholders and our colleagues to get this amendment. There were no contractors in committee that were opposed, or none of them testified against it. So this is a good policy, and it just addresses issues surrounding theft and fraud in the contracting industry, particularly to protect homeowners and ensure fair practices. And it clarifies some definitions, establishing clear guidelines and responsibilities. And with that, members, we would ask for your yes vote. Thank you.
Representative Kelty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I also want to point out that this does not create any new crimes. It just updates and clarifies existing law. Thank you, and we ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion. Representative Mabry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I'm here to urge a no vote on House Bill 1245. All of us agree that when there is a dispute between a homeowner and a contractor, there should be a remedy. I would wager to guess that most of us would agree that that should be a contract dispute. And fraud laws already exist. It is already a crime to commit fraud. We should be honest that a significant portion of Colorado's construction workforce is made up of immigrants, contractors, subcontractors, independent tradespeople, the people who work on our homes, who retile our kitchens and bathrooms. A large share of them are immigrants. Some are citizens, but some are here on work authorization. Some are even undocumented. And what this bill does is it creates a risk of criminalization of a work dispute. Imagine a scenario where you are a contractor and you tile somebody's kitchen and they do not pay you. They have committed wage theft. And you bring it up and say, hey, I was supposed to be paid for this. This bill gives them increased leverage to threaten criminal prosecution over a contract dispute. It turns a billing dispute into a criminal charge. And in 2026, criminal theft charge, even one that are not proven and that is eventually dropped, pings databases. It triggers ICE attention and can set deportation processes in motion. Under this bill, a disagreement with a contractor and a homeowner over whether an advance payment was spent on the right thing can end up with somebody facing criminal prosecution. That is a contract dispute. We already have the mechanisms to hold people accountable when they do not live up to their end of the bargain. And the tool on the other side of that should not be jail time or deportation. That should trouble every one of us. Somebody who is acting in bad faith. We've all seen it. Homeowner who changes the scope of a project midway and refuses to pay. A developer who invents defects to avoid making final payment. A client who simply decides after the materials are brought and the crew is mobilized that they would rather keep their money. Under current law, these are civil fights. Under this bill, a homeowner now has an additional tool to hold criminal prosecution over somebody's head. That is not hypothetical. That is what the bill does.
I honestly, as the chair of the Judiciary Committee, do not understand why this bill didn't go to the Judiciary Committee, because it implicates a criminal process. So again, we already have remedies for this problem. We have contractor trust fund statutes, we have mechanic lease laws, some of the strongest in the country. We have breach of contract, we have civil theft, which already allows for treble damages. We have consumer protection statutes. A homeowner who has been genuinely defrauded by a contractor has a full arsenal of tools without this bill. This bill doesn't add a necessary remedy. It adds a criminal escalation pathway in a country where a criminal charge can be the first domino in a deportation case in an industry that is dominated by immigrant workers. Please vote no on this bill.
Further discussion, Representative English.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, clearly we're not the bill routers, but we're assuming that it was routed to business because we're talking about contractors, which happens to fall under business. Members, this is not creating a new crime. It is not. Having a conversation with AML Bacon, the amendment that was proposed cleaned up the issues that was stated initially, which shows that we as the bill sponsors were open to having conversations to make it make sense. But what I do know is if grandma emptied out her bank account for $30,000 and paid a contractor and didn't get the services that she paid for, how can she now pay for litigation? And this is simply saying if there's a feeling that there's fraud or thought that there's fraud, that due process can happen and there can be an investigation. This is not criminalizing anyone and causing homeowners to be able to hold something over anyone's head. Because first of all, if the contractors do it right the first time and do what they were paid to do, we wouldn't have this particular issue. But this is, in fact, an issue, and me and my co-prime have said numerous times who this is really affecting, which is our most vulnerable, our senior neighbors. And so, not creating a new crime, simply clarifying theft to contractors and what that looks like and being able to have an investigation done is not a big ask. There are many things that come across this desk in this building, and something like this is not even a big ask. It's not a heavy lift. And again, I just want to point out the fact that no one from the business community, not one contractor signed up in a position of opposition, and not one contractor came and testified against this bill. And so with that, members, we just ask for a yes vote. Thank you.
Representative Kelty.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I agree with my colleague. It was a pretty plain and simple bill. All the evidence was given, and it went through the committee. I do want to say that with the amendment, it fixed any concerns with anything like that. AML Bacon went through with one of the on-site attorneys, as well as she's an attorney, and they went through the bill line by line by line, and the areas that were of a concern that it could possibly have someone fall through the cracks accidentally or innocently through any type of confusion, those cracks were plugged. We filled the cracks. So this is a good, legitimate, solid bill, and we're asking for an aye vote. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1245? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1245 as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. House Bill 1245 as amended is passed. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
You have heard the motion. Seeing no objection, the committee will rise and report.
The House will come back to order. Mr. Schiebel, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report as under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. House Bills 1075 as amended, 1078 as amended, 1227 as amended, 1245 as amended, 1298 as amended, 1317 as amended, and 1338 passed on second reading, ordered and grossed and placed on the calendar for third and final passage. Senate Bills 1960 as amended, 83, 85 as amended, 95 as amended, and 153 passed on second reading, ordered, revised, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Representative McCormick. You have heard the motion, members. There are amendments at the desk. I'll ask you to take your seats as we'll be voting. Mr. Schiebel, please read the Mabry amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Representative Mabry moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in adopting House Bill 1245 to show that House Bill 1245 as amended lost.
Representative Mabry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move the Mabry Amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Before I pass this to my far-left colleague from House District 6, I do just want to make a few remarks about the conversation that we had on seconds. Fraud is already dealt with under existing law. There are a myriad of ways where if you are in a contract dispute with the person that retiles your kitchen, that you can hold them liable, including criminally. If they steal your money, you can do that. This adds more crimes into that space in what is a civil dispute in an industry that is dominated by immigrant workers, contractors, subcontractors, independent trade people, the people that do our drywall, retile our kitchens and bathrooms. Many are immigrants, many are lawful permanent residents, some are undocumented. And what we are doing here is we are tipping the balance to where the people who are employing these subcontractors will have a new tool in the tool belt that can threaten criminal prosecution for what is a contract dispute. And so for those reasons, I strongly urge a yes on the Mabry Amendment to rule that for us to decide that this bill doesn't pass. We shouldn't be in the business of criminalizing contract disputes.
Representative Camacho.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate my progressively pragmatic colleague from Denver as well talking about these issues. And I think between the two of us, when we come down on a bill and have concerns, I think most people should take note. I agree with everything my colleague from Denver has said. In addition, I would just like to point out, this bill upsets the balance that we have between private commercial contracts and crimes. The goal that, from my understanding, sitting committee of what the sponsors are trying to get over are those small dollar amounts that people invest in a contractor and then never get the work done. But I'll argue that anything under $7,500, which is the target of this bill, would be in small claims court. Are we really in the position to start criminalizing action that would be before a small claims court, couldn't even get to a county judge? Because a contractor took a deposit and fell off a ladder, got injured, or couldn't complete the job. Now they have committed a crime. That's the path this bill goes down. That's the path that we should reject. And for that, I urge a yes vote.
Further discussion. Rep. Kelty, would you like to be last or would you like to speak now? Okay, thank you. And Rep. Kelty, you can speak twice on the amendment, so it's your choice. Okay. Reps Espinosa, Rep. Zokai, who would like to go first? Rep. Zokai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Happy to speak to this as the reasonable, moderate perspective here and urge a yes vote on the Mabry Amendment. What this bill does is it creates contract disputes, turns them into crimes. And we have a number of ways for people to be made whole when these disputes happen. We have certain criminal charges that can be levied. There's also breach of contract. There's a number of ways where somebody who is wronged has the ability to recover damages. But in this bill, we are redefining contract disputes as theft and exposing contractors to criminal prosecution rather than civil liability. In effect, what is happening is we're tying project delays or non-performance to showing criminal intent. And there are a lot of complex reasons that things can be delayed. There are timelines that shift, delays happen in these type of projects, and we should not turn those realities into potential felony conduct. And look, I don't think any of us are saying there aren't bad actors. There are certainly bad actors, and there is a lot that we have to do to strengthen civil enforcement in this space. But we should not be expanding criminal penalties for contract disputes, and I urge a yes vote on this amendment.
Representative Espinosa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. It's a pleasure to serve with you.
It's a pleasure to serve with you.
I also rise as the progressive Denver representative to articulate from a judicial standpoint why I have concerns with this bill. First of all, you know, we've talked before, people don't necessarily love to come to judiciary because we can tear apart bills and maybe make changes that people don't think are necessary. But we do that for a reason. This bill did not go through that process. It went through a business process. And from that perspective, I can understand that people would say it's a good process because we're trying to fix a problem. I believe this problem exists. But I'm concerned not even with I am concerned with all the points that my previous colleagues have spoken about, but also about the requirements when we're talking about those small contractors on the level of what they're providing in their notices. Right now, in my backyard, probably not because of the snow, but I'm in the process of having a patio laid. In order to do that, I obtained bids from 3 different contractors. However, as we've been moving through the project, there have been change orders in each of the, consistently. Under this bill, my concern is, how would those change orders, if they're failed to be fully identified, not lead to potential criminal prosecution if they fail to give me updates every time we make a determination that we're adding something to that project? As a homeowner, I could sue the contractor for deviating substantially from that original bid that they gave me based on the terms and conditions of this bill. This was an issue that I was concerned about when I read the bill, and I do think, and that's another reason to vote yes for this amendment, because this bill has some issues still that it needs to be worked on. Thank you.
AML Bacon.
Members, thank you so much, and welcome to House Judiciary. And so I also note that only like 6 people were laughing. And so I just want to acknowledge what my colleagues are saying, and I think what you're hearing is the conversation we would have had there. And so I think I just want to talk a little bit about the amendment and the conversation that I had with the DAs on it, and you know, we can vote. Ultimately, what the amendment did was add a standard of unreasonable in front of delay or cessation. And the reason why that's important, and we also add with the criminally negligent mind. The term knowingly for the other lawyers, knowingly just means you're getting up and doing something, right? And we said that in order for this to be under theft, you have to demonstrate kind of a mindset of stealing. You can't just stop work, right, or just delay work, which also we thought was unbound in the statute. And so we put unreasonably, which means it will tie it to the contract. And then the last thing we did was strike. We said for material breach is no longer in there because determinations of if contracts were breached is a civil matter. That is not a crime, if that makes sense. So what's left is for unreasonable delay or cessation, which means to stop, work stoppage. And so that's what the amendment did on the floor. And you are dismissed from judiciary. Okay.
Representative Kelty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to AML Bacon. That she's 100% correct. We went through this with the DAs, and they understand we don't want to, and we're not going to create any type of new criminal statutes or anything like that. What this bill does is for those who can't afford or don't have the ability to go to litigation, for the small amounts, the senior citizens, Grandma Ethel, you know, she's been, you know, and these are for scammer type of contractors. These aren't for like the legitimate ones that, you know, you go through, get the 3 bids and things like that. These are the ones that you see, and everyone has seen them, go door to door saying, hey, Grandma Ethel, we see that you need a new roof. Well, if you give us the money up front, we will go ahead and do it for half the cost. And, you know, when you're in a pinch and you're, sometimes out of sound mind, you may be able to get scammed into something like that. So that is all this bill does. It gives basically the ability to investigate whether it is or is not a scam, if it is or is not fraud. That's all this bill does. It's very plain and simple, and I appreciate AML for putting her two cents in, because she did do her due diligence yesterday, very much so, line by line. They went through it all, and I absolutely and completely trust her and her abilities as an attorney. Thank you.
Representative English.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, and I just want to do the same thing. Thank AML Bacon for the conversation and willingness to go line by line. She's an attorney as well that I trust, and I don't think she just pulls stuff off the top of her head and make it up. But anyway, so thanks to AML Bacon. But I do want to say it speaks volume to the fact that when we were in committee, not one single contractor came and had this whole argument and asked us why are we doing this, or telling us this is something that we don't need. Because the narrative of a new crime is not a true narrative. Because I'm definitely, as a Black Caucus member, not around here just create new crimes for people that look like me to get locked up. So that ain't it, and that's not what this bill is. And I wanted to say that publicly because it's important to me to not over-criminalize people with the positions of power that we hold. And so my colleague in co-prime over here, thank you for the work on the bill. I was added to the bill because this is a huge issue in El Paso County. And so with that, members, we just asked for a yes vote. We did the due diligence. We asked for a no vote on this amendment. Sorry, scratch that from the record. We asked for a no vote on this amendment because we did the work. We asked questions, we had conversations, we made the necessary changes, and this is a good bill, and it's not criminalizing anyone. So please, we ask for a no vote on this amendment.
Minority Leader Caldwell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, and my apologies to the bill sponsors. I wasn't paying attention to be called on, so it wasn't my intention to go after them. I'm going to ask to be no vote. The sponsors on this have done their due diligence. This was brought by law enforcement in El Paso County because it is such a problem down there of bad actors taking large amounts of money and then never returning, frankly, and I think a lot of times never having any intention to begin with to do the work. And so this is just very much narrowing the scope, and like my colleague said, it's a lot of elder people who are being targeted by these bad actors. And so, I understand this body's resistance a lot of times to create new crimes, but I think if you speak to any person on the street and you ask them, do you think this should be a crime to take this large amount of money and basically then go use it for something else and never do the work? The people, I think, without question, the majority of people would say absolutely. I think if this was a ballot initiative, you'd certainly see the people say that, yeah, this is the wrong thing to do. And we've heard from our own local law enforcement of how much this is a problem. So I'm going to support the bill sponsors here and ask that you be a no on this amendment.
Representative English, this is your second time speaking. You have 8 minutes and 49 seconds remaining. 8 minutes and 49 seconds.
Oh, I don't need 8 minutes and 49 seconds. Members, I just want to be clear. This will completely kill our whole bill. And because we did the work and had the conversations, amended the bill as requested, this is why I'm coming back, just to give clarity to those who may not know. Voting for this will kill the bill. So I ask for a no vote. No. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of the Mabry Amendment. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Lindsay, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Lindsay votes yes. Representative Ferre, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ferre votes yes. Representative Rutenell, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Rutenell votes yes. Representative Clifford is excused. Please close the machine. With 32 aye, 28 no, and 5 excused, the amendment is lost. Mr. Schiebel, please read the Hartsook amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Representative Hartsook moved to amend the part of the Committee of the Whole to oversee action taken by the committee in adopting the following Carter Amendment, L11, to Senate Bill 95 to show that said amendment lost and that Senate Bill 95 passed.
Representative Hartsook.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, and happy snow day.
Happy snow day to you, sir.
Thanks, sir. I move the Hartsook Amendment to Senate Bill 95 request to properly be displayed.
Please proceed.
Members, the sirens are coming to get us. I appreciate the defense that has been argued, the Constitution, how everything goes. I appreciate watching the lawyers. It's kind of fun watching judiciary in action again. But today we do have the technology and we have the ability for defendants, especially victims, to be on that Zoom. When you're a victim of a specific crime and you would be traumatized over and over again, that is not judicial course of action. That is punishment. We will urge an aye vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. So members, I just wanted to give some clarity as to what the bill was without the amendment. So Senate Bill 95, as currently drafted, without the amendment that was added on second reading, aligns, and I repeat, aligns with standards for remote testimony for children under similar circumstances. The Children Remote Testimony Statute has been tested in courts and withstands scrutiny. Altering the language will create unknown risk because it will no longer align with the case law. We need to keep the language as it is so we are best positioned to handle any appeal and any challenge that may come our way. So making the change makes it more likely for this to be challenged on constitutionality are not less likely, and therefore could continue to put more survivors at risk. You know, members, I've been up here many times as a survivor. You know my story in the 8 years that I have been here. So I'm not going to repeat it, but what I am going to say is very rarely as survivors do we get an opportunity to have our truth heard, whether that be here in this well, whether that be in court, whether it be anywhere, because it is so difficult for someone to believe us. Today I'm asking and I'm pleading with you as a survivor to please dig deep into your hearts. Put yourself in my shoes. You would want your voice to be heard. You'd want your side to be heard without fear of intimidation from your abuser, period. I ask you for a yes vote on this.
Further discussion. Representative Espinosa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. It's exactly the level of emotion and trauma that we heard the victims were asking to not have to endure by adoption of this bill. I totally agree with that. The bill at its core and at its premise is to allow those victims to testify outside the presence of the defendant. This amendment does nothing to change that. The victim will testify outside the presence of the defendant. Now, I know many people, since we passed the amendment, have heard from their district attorneys. But let me just tell you, as someone who's worked in the criminal justice system and been a judge, here's how this will go if we leave this jury, if we don't hold to the amendment that we passed. In every case, we've now extended the criminal prosecution and therefore the time that those victims are subject to questions of how things are going to fall out. Because in every case now, there will be a fight between the prosecutor and the defense over whether the jury can go into the room and watch the victim. And in every case, then the victim's going to have to decide, if the judge decides to put the jury in with that victim, does that create the trauma that we're exactly trying to avoid by this bill? And/or, as the defense will be arguing, does that mean that I'm going to be denied my Sixth Amendment right to confrontation and/or my due process right by having the jury watch the victims in person, not the defendant, and then be traumatized and be subject to the emotional testimony of that victim. To influence them, I would say on appeal, the defendant will argue, with prejudice, because you're putting them in the position of seeing all of the trauma that the victim is experiencing. And I think, just in terms of the practicality, 90% of the time, I believe the judges will side with the defendant and say that we should not put the jury in there because of the emotional impact and because the victim's trauma will be greater to have more people in the room with them than less, which is the whole reason we're allowing for the CCTV to have in the first place, right? Minimizing the victim's trauma, allowing them to testify outside the presence of the defendant. But what's going to happen in those 10% of the cases where judges say, okay, prosecutor, you're right. In this circumstance, we'll let you testify, let the witness testify with the jury present. In those 10% of cases, I would submit, because there is no case law, despite what anybody's told you, there is no case law on this jury question, there's going to be an immediate appeal. And what I heard from the victims is that many of them were traumatized because the proceedings kept going on, and then they got reversed. And in this circumstance, I will guarantee you, with pretty high certainty, that the defendant's rights are going to be paramount in that circumstance when the courts weigh the determination, and they're going to reverse a conviction that happened because the jury was in that room. And so I am not speaking against victims. I am speaking for victims in supporting this amendment. Because ultimately, we want to reduce the harm to those victims and the trauma that they're facing and not put them through a process that we're doing because we have to have equivalency between the child and the adults. In the child process, the reason we had that provision in there, I would surmise, is because the case that this was all based upon involved a child. But in a child case, the evaluation the judge makes is already so much greater than what's going to happen when you're talking about an adult defendant and another victim. So there is a rational legal reason to separate these cases with an adult defendant from the cases that we've already allowed the jury to be in the room for with the children. I'm urging you, for the sake of the victims, understanding how the criminal process will play out, and not letting one victim be traumatized by their conviction being overturned because we didn't take this step today. Please support this amendment.
Further discussion? Representative Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to ask you to vote no on this. I want to give you a little background. I want to give you a background on this bill and why I, who hate hostile amendments, stood up on this bill. This bill was in committee. It came through judiciary. I looked at the bill. Out of respect for the sponsors, I indicated the issues that I had with the bill. My request was, allow the bill out, but talk to me about the issues that I have so we can work through that. The answer I got regarding my issues was no. Fine. That is the sponsor's prerogative, and I'm okay with that. But then I had to make a choice. I had to make a decision about my own personal rules and what I believe is best for this bill and the population of the state of Colorado. I want to point out I have respect for the sponsors. I don't want that to be confused. I don't want any type of confusion regarding my respect for the sponsors and the people who have already spoke. I want that to be understood. But you got to understand, no one's going to give you a medal for standing up in this room and speaking on behalf of defendants. They are not. And if you don't believe me, check your phones, because within the last 2 hours, I guarantee you, the lobby has blown it up. They have blown it up, and they have told you everything but the truth about this bill. I've been told that I'm anti-victim. The things that they have been explaining to you are not true. So let me tell you what I asked for. I already understand that a victim does not have to be in the same room as the defendant. Boom. Yeah. I said, okay, that's fine. Special need victim, you don't have to be in the same room as the defendant. But the bill goes farther than that. The bill says that you don't have to be in the same room as the jury if you're a defendant. So I voiced that displeasure. I asked the sponsors to change that one little piece, because how are you going to be judged by 12 people who aren't even in the same room as you? How? How is that okay? How? You guys cannot see yourselves as defendants is the problem, but I can. I can see myself as a defendant every day. And so when I come down here, and I don't like coming down here, and I keep saying that, and y'all keep making me come down here. I don't like coming down here, but I see myself as a defendant. I've tried more cases than 90% of the people in this building. I know what a jury trial looks like, and I'm being told that I don't know what I'm talking about. I am being told I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm being told that I hate victims. You're not going to get a medal for standing with me. You won't. You won't. As a matter of fact, I'm probably going to be denigrated in a minute. But I tell you what, even though I hate coming down here, even though I hate adding amendments, even though I hate this process, I'm standing up and I'm telling you, as a defendant, I want this process to be fair, period. Vote no on that amendment.
Further discussion on the amendment? Madam Assistant Majority Leader. Representative Luck, would you like to speak as well? Okay. I'll come back to you after.
Can't believe it's like a judiciary day. I will say that what I want to add to this, and I do want to add to this on behalf of all of our colleagues in the committee, even those who are supporting this amendment, and I want to speak for myself. I stood for it on the division vote. And I had just come back from the Red Room of Doom, came over here, and I saw on the top of the amendment Carter, and I understood what the language did. And I want to share what my perspective was at the time, because I do want to separate this from any of our intentions or motives. I feel like, temperature is a little up. I trust the bill sponsors and I trust the amendment sponsor. And so I wanted to reiterate the conversation we had in committee, because I was one who spoke about this and why I stood for it, not understanding the context of who brought it and when. Ultimately, when we were in committee, I too said on the microphone, there was an amendment brought in committee that had to do with training for law enforcement, and I did not like how that went down. And then when it came to some of the outstanding questions and can we move forward, I too said, I have some 6A concerns, which is Sixth Amendment concerns. I hope we can talk about that. I was here for the bill. I voted on the bill with children in CCTV, and I remember the conversation about the fundamental differences between children and adults, which was a component of consideration, not only in the case law, but for that bill. One of my colleagues brought that bill. And so the reason why I said I had concerns is because it does matter who's in the room. And as you heard from my colleague from Denver, the whole issue with someone not being in the room, on the one hand, is what is it that you can discern in general, weighed against how you can vet the witness as well as listen to their testimony. That's kind of the legal quandary that we have found ourselves in. With children, factors are too distracting and intimidating. And that was a part of the consideration of that language then. And so the question that this amendment addressed is if the survivor or the victim, and we're still in court, so it's still, unfortunately the crime is still alleged, should the jury and the defendant both be in the room when they're witnessing the testimony, because all of that matters in determinations of credibility. And so, yes, I did stand for the amendment, because also in some of the conversations that I had in this chamber, I wasn't actually quite sure of where we had landed on if it was going to be run or not. I have since had a conversation with the Senate sponsor. The interesting thing for me in regards to the challenge is that this is a Senate bill, but some of us will be here to live on to continue to have these conversations. But I do want you to understand the conversation came down to some of the questions about due process and Constitution. The Sixth Amendment, if you're not familiar, it's the Confrontation Clause. We have in the Constitution a right to speedy trial, right? A right to due process. And that's the type of scrutiny. And so what all of us did say in committee as well is we understand what this bill is trying to do and who it supports. And I said that in my closing as well. There are other components of this bill I think should apply to everybody. But some of us did ask the question as a matter of law, not as a matter of some of the temperaments. Now, I have not been exposed to some of the things that might be happening behind the glass. But also the things that happen behind the glass are par for the course for judiciary. It's sad, the lines that have been drawn that are unnecessary, in my opinion. But to add to the conversation, and so one, we wanted to at least do what we're doing here. We appreciate debate and we appreciate the votes that we can take. I was hoping to just explain what the conversation was and also explain myself. But if I have to be asked who I support, I understand that by way of this whole process and what's happening, I understand that as a fair question in this building as well. And I just hope we can respect it all. But I hope you can understand why I stood for the division vote and what it is that I have been able to do with talking to the Senate sponsors about this issue that will help determine my vote for here. But I please just wanted to add before you spoke, I know it's been a tough day to kind of help just provide clarity and maybe bring it down a little bit. So thank you for all the graces.
Representatives Wilford and Froelich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I want you all to understand that this is not a victim-centered amendment. It's not. We need to vote, we need to vote for this amendment to strip the amendment that was put on during the cow. And I want to address some of the things that I heard about process. You can run any amendment you want on any bill. Go for it. Knock yourself out. But the impact of running an amendment on a bill about survivors of sex assault, human trafficking, domestic violence, and stalking, without saying a word to the very people who are running the bill, it's wrong. Especially when you know that one of the bill sponsors is a sex assault survivor. It's silencing us. And this isn't the first time that a hostile amendment's been run on this bill in a House without a word. It's the second time. And so yes, I've had a very visceral reaction, a very physical reaction today, and that reaction should be data. Because it's what survivors feel every day when we're ignored, when we're overridden, or we're silenced by people who think that they know better than us. Yes, you can come to me after committee and we can work to address your concerns. But if your concerns cannot be addressed, I have the right to say no. I have the right to not give my consent. But you also have the obligation to tell me what you're doing. As a colleague, that is what I expect. I guess I want to know, what is it going to take for people in this building and people out in the world to believe survivors? When we tell you about the horrible things that have happened to us, what will it take before we trust survivors and their words? Because I know personally, and I know that many of the other survivors that were involved in crafting this bill in bill language feel like we have been shouting out into the void, sharing our stories over and over and over again, asking for somebody just to hear us and to believe us and do something about it. And when you've lived through sexual violence, you become acutely aware of every moment when the system either catches you or lets you fall. So few of these cases ever get to trial. So few cases. So yes, victims are traumatized because we have told our stories over and over again. And if it's not safe for them to be in the same room as the defendant, then the judge gets to make a decision as to whether or not they should be able to give testimony, an explanation of what happened to them via CCTV. And you know what? The jury should be able to weigh the impact on a victim. They should be able to weigh it. And if it's emotional, then thank God somebody finally feels what it's like to be a survivor and the emotion that comes with it. And the judge, again, the judge makes the decision, including the parameters on a list of what should be included and how it will play out. For one part of the trial, this is a small part of the trial. The bill as drafted aligns with the standards for remote testimony for children under certain circumstances. The Children's Remote Testimony Statute has been tested in the courts and withstood scrutiny. Altering the language will create unknown risk because it will no longer align with case law. We need to keep the language in the bill as it was introduced so that we are best positioned to handle any appeal or challenge that may come. The Attorney General's office worked with us on this language and signed off on it. And there was no registered opposition to the bill. Not the defense bar, not the ACLU, nothing. In fact, those same groups, along with the survivors that helped craft this bill, are in opposition to what was done during the COW. The experience of a survivor in the justice system is horrific. And this amendment that was added to the COW undermines a victim's testimony, which is counter to the goal of the bill. We would ask you to vote yes on this amendment. Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption. Representative Hartsook. And just for the sake of the body and for the sake of our discussion here, Rep. Hartsook, no reflection on what you are about to say. We have heard some behind the scenes in terms of process. I allowed those remarks from both sides on the argument on the amendment. I believe that has been handled now, or at least been able to be articulated and responded to. I will ask that any further discussion on this amendment relate to the amendment and the contents of the amendment as they are policy and not personality. Representative Hartsook.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. And thank you for all of that for everybody that's been up here. There's 23 district attorneys in this state. They are in support and concurring with what we are trying to do here on this COW amendment. That's why we're running this. I appreciate everybody who's come down here to speak, their comments, their viewpoints, and all of that. I'm running the amendment because 23 district attorneys including Democrat and Republicans, have requested this. I urge an aye vote. Thank you.
Seeing no Representative Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize. I did not want to go after the amendment sponsor, but I felt I need to come down here real quick. I am not anti-victim. The amendment is not anti-victim. The victim can still testify through closed circuit television. Nothing in the amendment says that they cannot testify. And the fact that I have to say this again tells you what I've been trying to explain to you. This is about the defendant and the jury and making sure the defendant and the jury are in the same room. I'm sorry I have to keep saying that over and over again. I'm sorry, no matter what I say, no one's going to listen to it. I want you to know I am not anti-victim, but if we are going to argue a position, can we at least argue the facts of the amendment? This is about the jury being in the same room as the defendant, period.
Representative Luck.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. In this building, we have to balance rights. We have to balance the rights of various constituencies. We don't have the privilege of looking at situations and leaning only into one side. Due process requires us to look at all of the parties at play. This particular bill is designed specifically to look at the interests of victims. And sometimes when we're walking a road, instead of staying in the middle, where all of the interests are fairly balanced, we find ourselves leaning into one side or the other. This amendment is asking out of a multi-page bill to strike, in essence, a word, jury. The jury. To bring it a little bit more center. To allow for the understanding that there are more than just victims present in a courtroom. Our systems have to be fair. Fair to all parties. Even when that's hard. Even when that leads to outcomes we don't like. People often talk about not wanting just the red button and the green button, wishing there was a middle button, a different color. The nice thing about rejecting this particular amendment and sticking with what happened on second reading is that it opens the door for a third way. Because the bill would then go back to the Senate, and the Senate would have an opportunity to go into conference. Conference where perhaps a new solution could be found. A solution that on this one question, there could be reconciliation. There are obviously very important issues at play here. Rights of victims and rights of defendants. We should allow that conversation to take place and hope that by bringing not just the DAs to the table, but also the public defenders, that a way forward could be had. as an aside, I'm hopeful that that third way will be selected. Because there are systems of injustice, even in this room and by the rules of this House, that also need to be addressed. And perhaps that will be a signal that there is a willingness to address the injustices that are brought about by our own body and its rules. I ask for a no vote, and I will just state on the record that the representative from Denver, our former jurist, also meant to say no on this particular amendment. She meant to keep the amendment that was passed on seconds.
Seeing no further discussion, the question, Representative Froelich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For my good colleague from Fremont, man, would we love to be in the middle of the road. Can victims get to 50%? Man, that would be amazing. Can you believe survivors? If 50% of survivors made it to a investigation, when we're at 1% making it to a courtroom, and we bring a bill, by the way, that is start to finish on the process. From the time you talk to the police, we're asking, can law enforcement please be trauma informed so that our victims don't go through additional trauma as they tell their stories? Can the folks that take the forensic evidence from the bodies of the victims, this is the only crime in which your body is a crime scene. Have you heard the testimony on what it's like to go through that? And that's if you're lucky that there's DNA evidence, and you're lucky that the crime lab managed to actually process your DNA. Then you're lucky it gets matched to a person. Then you're lucky the DA agrees to prosecute. This bill talks about how we treat victim survivors the whole way through. Can you be treated with dignity while the forensic evidence is being taken from your body? Can you be treated with dignity as you speak to police over and law enforcement over and over and over again and tell your story? And then, should you be lucky enough to make it into court, can you please testify by closed circuit? And again, there isn't opposition to any of that. But also, there's no opposition to this bill. There is no registered opposition to this bill. It made it through Senate Judiciary unanimously. It made it through the Senate with a handful, less than a handful of no votes. Made it through our judiciary. And again, yes, discussions were had after that committee. And yes, you heard from the folks who are the proponents of the bill. Because, dear God, can we swing the pendulum away from 1%? We would love to be in a quote-unquote middle ground. How fantastic if we believed women at 50% survivors. It is 1 in 4 women will experience this, and it is 1 in 6 men will experience sexual assault in their lifetimes. What tiny fraction will make it to a courtroom? And when the victim survivors come forward and they have the support of the DAs, the AG, the defense bar, and they bring a bill and they get this far, and then on the cow we have to go through, we just think we need to go more towards the middle of the road. You know what happens in the middle of the road? There's a lot of traffic and you get run over, I don't know. But as I said, the whole point of this is to swing the pendulum a fraction. I can't even express to you how minutely we are moving this in the direction of victim survivors, and yet it is landmark. And so, yes, when the victim is testifying in the courtroom, the judge can make a whole host of decisions. How the CCTV is going to play out, who gets to run it, how we're going to handle this. They make this in concert with the defendant's attorneys. And one of the things the judge can decide is where the jury sits. For this one portion, the victim testimony. And yet we come here, and for a variety of reasons, we say we don't believe you that there's enough support for this. We think this one thing is grossly unfair. You know what we think is unfair? The statistics around how victims and survivors are treated. We're asked for a yes vote on this amendment.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before the House is the adoption of the Hartsook Amendment. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine. Members, please proceed to vote. Representative Lindsay, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Lindsay votes yes. Representative Ferre, how do you vote? Representative
No.
Ferre, can you restate that for us, Representative Ferre?
No.
Representative Ferre votes no. Representative DeGraff, how do you vote?
No.
Representative DeGraff votes no. Representative Rutenell, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Rutenell votes yes. Please close the machine. With 44 aye, 19 no, and 2 excused, the amendment is adopted. The question before us is the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine. Members, please proceed to vote. Representative Lindsay, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Lindsay votes yes. Representative Ferre?
Yes.
Representative Ferre votes yes. Representative DeGraff?
No.
Representative DeGraff votes no. Representative Rutenell?
Yes.
Representative Rutenell votes yes. Please close the machine. With 40 aye, 23 no, and 2 excused, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. I think we're straightened away. Majority Leader Duran.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move to proceed out of order for consideration of Senate amendments to House bills.
Seeing no objection, we will proceed out of order for consideration of Senate amendments to House bills. Madam Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem and members, House Bill 1374 and House Bill 1397 were improperly calendared for consideration of Senate amendments. No Senate amendments were adopted into the bills, and there is no difference between the regrossed and revised version of the bills. Therefore, we are removing House Bill 1374 and House Bill 1397 from the consideration of Senate amendments calendared and enrolling the bills as passed.
Those bills will be removed from the calendar as such. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of House Bill 1239.
House Bill 1239 by Representatives Goldstein and Richardson, also Senator Mulca, concerning modifications to a county's enforcement authority in connection with property in the county.
Madam Majority Leader. Are we laying it over? We're laying it over. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I'd like to lay over House Bill 1239.
House Bill 1239 will be laid over until
Until Monday.
House Bill 1239 will be laid over until Monday. Madam Majority, Mr. Shebel, please read the title of House Bill 1305.
House Bill 1305 by Representative Lukens, also Senator Roberts, concerning enhancing access to inpatient behavioral health by aligning state and federal statutes.
Representative Lukens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. With a bill that works to keep rural healthcare thrive, HCPF needed an amendment if we wanted this bill to survive. It prevents a service disruption, no need to do a deep dive. I move the House concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1305.
Very well done. The motion before us is to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1305. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Lindsay, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Lindsay votes yes. Representative Ferre, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ferre votes yes. Representative DeGraff, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative DeGraff votes yes. Representative Rutenell, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Rutenell votes yes. Please close the machine. With 62 aye, 1 no, and 2 excused, the motion to concur with Senate amendments is adopted. Madam Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, I move for the repassage of House Bill 1305 as amended.
The motion before us is the repassage of House Bill 1305 as amended. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine. Members, please proceed to vote. Representative Lindsay, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Lindsay votes yes. Representative Ferre, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ferre votes yes. Representative DeGraff, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative DeGraff votes yes. Representative Rutenell, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Rutenell votes yes. Ricks. Please close the machine. With 63 ayes, 0 no, and 2 excused, House Bill 1305 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Darren. Representative Sirota. Mr. Shebel, please read the title to House Bill 1357.
House Bill 1357 by Representative Sirota and Taggart, also Senators Mobley and Bridges, concerning phasing out the teacher recruitment, education, and preparation program and in connection therewith making and reducing an appropriation.
Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move that the House not concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1357, and I request that a conference committee be formed and request that the conference committee be permitted to go beyond the scope of the differences between the chambers.
Please tell us a little more.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. The Senate amended this bill to find a different fund source to support the extension of TREP for just 1 year, and so we need an opportunity to consider that fund source and how it will be applied.
Members, the motion before us is to not concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1357 to appoint a conference committee and to grant the conference committee permission to go beyond the scope of the differences between the chambers. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Lindsay, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Lindsay votes yes. Representative Ferre?
Yes.
Representative Ferre votes yes. Representative DeGraff?
Yes.
Representative DeGraff votes yes. Representative Rutenell?
Yes.
Representative Rutenell votes yes. With 61, please close the machine. With 61 aye votes, 1 no vote, and 3 excused, the motion is adopted. Representative Sirota will serve as chair. Representative Brown and Representative Taggart are also appointed to the conference committee on 1357. Mr. Shebel, please read the title to House Bill 1363.
House Bill 1363 by Representatives Brown and Sirota, also Senators Mobley and Bridges, concerning a temporary reduction in the general fund reserve.
Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move that the House not concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1363 and request that a conference committee be formed and request that the conference committee be permitted to go beyond the scope of differences between the chambers.
Love that. Would you like to tell us a little more?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. They made some technical changes to the bill, and we want to make sure that that actually is accurate and need time to consider.
Members, the motion before us is to not concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1363 to appoint a conference committee and to grant that conference committee permission to go beyond the scope of the differences between the chambers. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine. Members, please proceed to vote. Representative Lindsay.
Yes.
Representative Lindsay votes yes. Representative Ferre.
Yes.
Representative Ferre votes yes. Representative DeGraff.
Yes.
Representative DeGraff votes yes. Representative Rutenau.
Yes.
Representative Rutenau votes yes. Ricks. Please close the machine. With 62 ayes, 0 no, and 3 excused, the motion is adopted. Representative Sirota will serve as chair. Representatives Brown and Representative Taggart are also appointed to the Conference Committee on House Bill 1363. Mr. Shebel, please read the title to House Bill 1373.
House Bill 1373 by Representatives Brown and Sirota, also Senators Mobley and Kirkmeyer, concerning reducing monthly subsidy reimbursement percentages for child welfare services, provider contracts, and in connection therewith, reducing an appropriation.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1373.
Please tell us a little more.
In the Senate, they added a few contract requirements and notice requirements. There's no fiscal impact, and we feel we can agree to that. So we ask for an aye vote on concurrence.
Members, the motion before us is to concur in Senate amendments to House Bill 1373. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine. Members, please proceed to vote. Representative Lindsay.
Yes.
Representative Lindsay votes yes. Representative Ferre.
Yes.
Representative Ferre votes yes. Representative DeGraff.
Yes.
Representative DeGraff votes yes. Representative Rutenau.
Yes.
Representative Rutenau votes yes. Luck, Stewart, R. Please close the machine. With 62 ayes, 0 no, and 3 excused, the motion is adopted. Madam Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, I move for the repassage of House Bill 1373 as amended.
Members, the motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1373 as the repassage of House Bill 1373 as amended. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine. Members, please proceed to vote. Representative Lindsay, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Lindsay votes yes. Representative Ferre.
Yes.
Representative Ferre votes yes. Representative DeGraff.
No.
Representative DeGraff votes no. Representative Rutenau.
Yes.
Representative Rutenau votes yes. Joseph and Story. Representative Story. Please close the machine. With 44 aye, 18 no, and 3 excused, House Bill 1373 is adopted. Mr. Shebel, please read the title. Oh, co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Shebel, please read the title to House Bill 1380.
House Bill 1380 by Representatives Brown and Taggart, also Senators Bridges and Kirkmeyer, concerning the repeal of the Office of the Judicial Discipline Ombudsman.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move that the House not concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1380. I request that a conference committee be formed and that that conference committee be permitted to go beyond the scope of the differences between the two chambers. or what I believe we call the whole enchilada.
I think that is the proper motion, the whole enchilada. That's great. Would you like to tell us a little more about that enchilada, Representative Taggart?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem and Mr. Chair. This is positioned as a technical cleanup, but we don't believe here in the House it's just a technical cleanup, and we want to have a discussion about this with our Senate colleagues. And I would ask for an aye vote.
Members, the motion before us is to not concur with Senate amendments on House Bill 1380 to appoint a conference committee and to grant that conference committee permission to go beyond the scope of the differences between the two chambers. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine. Members, please proceed to vote. Representative Lindsay.
Yes.
Representative Lindsay votes yes. Representative Ferre.
Yes.
Representative Ferre votes yes. Representative DeGraff.
Yes.
Representative DeGraff votes yes. Representative Rutenau.
Yes.
Representative Rutenau votes yes.
This one actually just goes to the governor, because they pass the state version.
Please close the machine. With 61 aye, 1 no, and 3 excused, the motion is adopted. Representative Sirota will serve as chair. Representative Brown and Representative Taggart are appointed to the conference committee as well. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1399.
House Bill 1399 by Representatives Brown and Taggart, also Senators Mobley and Kirkmeyer, concerning the elimination of the annual transfer from the general fund to the Multimodal Transportation and Mitigation Options Fund, and in connection therewith reducing an appropriation.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move that the House not concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1399. We request that the conference committee be formed, and that we request that the conference committee be permitted to go beyond the scope of the differences between the two chambers.
Who would like to tell us a little more about the request? Representative Taggart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. The Senate disagreed with our approach in terms of the $10.5 million from the general fund each year. And so, again, we need to get back and talk about their approach versus our approach. I believe our approach was better.
Members, the motion before us is to not concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1399 to appoint a conference committee and to grant the conference committee permission to go beyond the scope of the differences between the chambers. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine. Members, please proceed to vote. Representative Lindsay.
Yes.
Representative Lindsay votes yes. Representative Ferre.
Yes.
Representative Ferre votes yes. Representative DeGraff.
Yes.
Representative DeGraff votes yes. Representative Rutenau.
Yes.
Representative Rutenau votes yes. Please close the machine. With 60 aye, 2 no votes, and 3 excused, the motion is adopted. Representative Sirota will serve as chair. Representative Brown and Representative Taggart are appointed to the conference committee. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1405.
House Bill 1405 by Representatives Brown and Sirota, also Senators Mobley and Kirkmeyer, concerning transfers of money from certain cash funds to the general fund.
Representative Brown.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move that the House not concur with Senate amendments to 1405. Request that a conference committee be formed, and I request that the conference committee be permitted to go beyond the scope of differences between the two chambers.
Thank you, Representative
I feel
Brown.
like this motion needs a little more, interpretive dance, so that's what I think.
We'll put it to a vote.
Yeah, thanks.
Who would like to tell us more? Representative Sirota, tough act to follow.
Thank you. Yes, I have less humor. I think the differences were varied in terms of what the Senate did on this bill, but there are a number of amendments that are interplaying with the long bill, and so we need the opportunity to, in particular, work out those differences and ensure that they are aligned with the long bill.
Members, the motion before us is to not concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1405 to appoint a conference committee and grant the conference committee permission to go beyond the scope of the differences between the chambers. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Lindsay.
Yes.
Representative Lindsay votes yes. Representative Ferre.
Yes.
Representative Ferre votes yes. Representative DeGraff.
No.
Representative DeGraff votes no. Representative Rutenau.
Yes.
Representative Rutenau votes yes. Please close the machine. With 51 aye votes, 11 no votes, and 3 excused, the motion is adopted. Representative Sirota will serve as chair. Representatives Brown and Representative Taggart are appointed to the conference committee. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1406.
House Bill 1406 by Representatives Sirota and Taggart, also Senators Amabile and Kirkmeyer, concerning the repeal of certain provisions regarding the funding of capital construction and in connection therewith reducing an appropriation.
Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move that the House concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1406.
Please tell us more.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. They just made a small technical amendment. There's no fiscal impact, and I ask for your aye vote.
The motion before us is to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1406. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Lindsay.
Yes.
Representative Lindsay votes yes. Representative Ferre.
Yes.
Representative Ferre votes yes. Representative DeGraff.
Yes.
Representative DeGraff votes yes. Representative Rutenell.
Yes.
Representative Rutenell votes yes.
Thank you.
Please close the machine. With 62 aye votes, 0 no votes, and 3 excused, the motion is adopted. Majority Leader Duran.
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, I move for the repassage of House Bill 1406 as amended.
Members, the motion before us is the repassage of House Bill 1406 as amended. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Lindsay.
Yes.
Representative Lindsay votes yes. Representative Ferre.
Only if it comes with interpretive dance with Rep. Brown. Yes.
Representative Ferre votes yes. Representative DeGraff.
No.
Representative DeGraff votes no. Representative
And
Rutenell.
no on the dance.
Noted. Representative Rutenell.
Yes.
Representative Rutenell votes yes. Carter, Duran, and Valdez. Please do close the machine. With 57 aye, 5 no, and 3 excused, the motion to House Bill 1406 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1409.
House Bill 1409 by Representatives Brown and Sirota, also Senators Bridges and Kirkmeyer, concerning the distribution of money collected from the retail marijuana sales tax.
Representative Brown, tough crowd, go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move that the House not concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1409, request that a conference committee be formed, and I request that the committee be permitted to go beyond the scope of the differences between the two chambers.
Please proceed.
The Senate changed some of the local share language that we had in the bill, and so we would like to talk about it with our Senate colleagues.
The motion before us is to not concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1409 to appoint a conference committee and grant the conference committee permission to go beyond the scope of the differences between the chambers. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine. Members, please proceed to vote. Representative Lindsay.
Yes.
Representative Lindsay votes yes. Representative Ferre.
Yes.
Representative Ferre votes yes. Representative DeGraff.
Yes.
Representative DeGraff votes yes. Representative Rutenell.
Yes.
Representative Rutenell votes yes. Please close the machine. With 53 aye votes, 9 no votes, and 3 excused, the motion is adopted. Representative Sirota will serve as chair. Representatives Brown and Representative Taggart are appointed to the conference committee. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1410.
House Bill 1410 by Representative Sirota, also Senator Bridges, concerning the provision for payment of the expenses of the executive, legislative, and judicial departments of the state of Colorado and of its agencies and institutions for and during the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2026, except as otherwise noted.
Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move that the House not concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1410 request that a conference committee be formed and that the conference committee be permitted to go beyond the scope of the differences between the chambers.
Please proceed.
Well, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, the Senate made a lot more amendments than the House did, and some of them weren't very good. So we're going to have to go discuss that.
Great. The motion before us is to not concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1410, to appoint a conference committee and grant the conference committee permission to go beyond the scope of the differences between the chambers. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine. Members, please proceed to vote. Representative Lindsay.
Yes.
Representative Lindsay votes yes. Representative Ferre.
Yes.
Representative Ferre votes yes. Representative DeGraff.
Yes.
Representative DeGraff votes yes. Representative Rutenau.
Yes.
Representative Rutenau votes yes. Please close the machine. With 62 aye votes, 0 no votes, and 3 excused, the motion is adopted. Representative Sirota will serve as chair. Representatives Brown and Representative Taggart are also appointed to the conference committee. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1411.
House Bill 1411 by Representatives Brown and Sirota, also Senators Mobley and Kirkmeyer, concerning changes to health insurance benefits for certain low-income individuals who are not eligible for medical assistance due to their immigration status and in connection therewith, making and reducing an appropriation.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move that the House not concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1411 and request that a conference committee be formed and request that the conference committee be permitted to go beyond the scope of the differences between the two chambers.
Please proceed.
Obviously, we had a very vigorous debate about this particular bill in the House. The Senate also had a vigorous debate. We have different versions of what the changes to this program should be ongoing, and so we request the ability to work with our Senate colleagues to try to come up with a path forward.
The motion before us is to not concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1411 to appoint a conference committee and grant the conference committee permission to go beyond the scope of the differences between the chambers. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Lindsay.
Yes.
Representative Lindsay votes yes. Representative Ferre.
Yes.
Representative Ferre votes yes. Representative DeGraff.
No.
Representative DeGraff votes no. Representative Rutenau.
Yes.
Representative Rutenau votes yes. Please close the machine. With 43 aye votes, 19 no votes, and 19 excused, the motion is adopted. Representative Sirota will serve as chair. Representative Brown and Representative Taggart are also appointed to the conference committee. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1412.
House Bill 1412 by Representatives Sirota and Taggart, also Senators Bridges and Kirkmeyer, concerning authorizing the Department of Health Care Policy and Financing to use statistical sampling and extrapolation to recover overpayments to providers for certain Medicaid services and in connection therewith, making and reducing an appropriation.
Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move that the House not concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1412, request that a conference committee be formed and that the conference committee be permitted to go beyond the scope of the differences between the chambers.
Please proceed. Representative Taggart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. The Senate added to this bill the word alleged before, we did.
Oh, we took it out. They put it back. You're right.
Sorry. They put it back in, alleged overpayment, and I know I'm fine with that. But their second one tightens audit rules on the extrapolation formulas, and I believe we should just sit down and talk about their approach versus our approach.
Thank you. Members, the motion before us is to not concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1412 to appoint a conference committee and to grant the conference committee permission to go beyond the scope of the differences between the chambers. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Lindsay.
Yes.
Representative Lindsay votes yes. Representative Ferre.
Yes.
Representative Ferre votes yes. Representative DeGraff.
Yes.
Representative DeGraff votes yes. Representative Rutenau.
Yes.
Representative Rutenau votes yes. Carter. Please close the machine. With 62 aye votes, 0 no votes, and 3 excused, the motion is adopted. Representative Sirota will serve as chair. Representatives Brown and Taggart are also appointed to the conference committee. Majority Leader Duran.
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, I move to lay over the balance of the calendar till Monday, April 20th, 2026.
Seeing no objection, the balance of the calendar will be laid over until Monday, April 20th. Majority Leader Duran.
Wait.
Oh. Members, we have a little bit of business to do. You are free to go, and we will see you on Monday.
Yes. Don't push it.
Mr. Schiebel, please read reports of committee of reference.
Committee on Finance, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1335 be amended as followed, and as so amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Committee on Finance, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1119 be postponed indefinitely.
Signing of bills, resolutions, and memorials.
The Speaker has signed.
Signing of bills, resolutions, and memorials will be printed in the Journal. Introduction of resolutions.
House Concurrent Resolution 1006 by Representatives Luck and Garcia, submitting to the registered electors of the state of Colorado an amendment to the Colorado Constitution concerning the protection of the separation of powers by requiring a governor's proclamation convening the General Assembly to respect the General Assembly's authority to legislate.
House Concurrent Resolution 261006 will be assigned to the Committee on State, Civic, Veterans, and Military Affairs. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move that the House stand in adjournment until Monday, April 20th at 10 a.m.
Seeing no objection, the House will stand adjourned until Monday at 10 a.m.